Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where you can join us this morning for a little breakfast, maybe some drinks, chance to win some tickets to the game tonight, courtesy of our friends from Tickets for Less. DB, what's up?
What is going on?
Oh, just getting ready for the weekend. How you doing?
Shane, that's pretty good open. Not bad, my friend, not bad. He said it was only 10 seconds worth of an open. I'm like, man.
That wouldn't get it done.
I said 10 seconds is not very long.
No, it's certainly not.
He looked at me, straight face in the dark out there, and said 10 seconds is an eternity. I said, all right. For somebody, I'm sure it is. So, I mean, you know what? It's Football Friday. Got a little taste, a little preview yesterday. And it looks like an uneventful week on paper in college football. But I have a feeling it will not disappoint. It's a little sleepy.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the big one. You got the headliner with Ohio State, Penn State.
Yeah.
But there's some sneaky good ones, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'd be curious to get your thoughts.
I've got a handful
there's some helmet games that should be good, but
yes,
they aren't as inviting now that the season's unfolded.
There's also some stinky lines, I think, out there.
There's several
that we're gonna get to because some of them just don't make any sense at all to me.
Well, you saw the first one last night, and I told you that is the game. That's the game. Those are the games the Jets win. Like Jets will win that game last night. And for as poor as that first half was, and the Boo Birds were out, I mean, at the end of the day, the Texans.
No, they look terrible.
Well, they don't have anybody to throw to either.
That's a problem.
So, I mean, they're going to have to figure that out in the short term. But
with all the wide receiver deals, they didn't think they needed to pick anybody up.
So isn't it weird how all these receivers are moving, though?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Garrett Wilson is good again. So
apparently.
Well, he's tough.
Maybe he got some of that cayenne pepper, too.
Yeah. good,
got some of the
good pull.
The fountain of youth.
Hey, that's on my algorithms, too.
The cayenne pepper stuff?
Well, because, I do the apple cider vinegar, the cayenne, the honey.
Yep.
And turmeric.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't make me look like some of these people look out here.
I'm not even saying it's not good for you. It's
That's
just
fantastic. Thank you for doing that, boss. That's really driving. You
got to be careful. Chupacabras out there.
Well, they're not as inclined to be out in the daytime.
That's true. We got lights on out there.
There's lights on, and we're past.
So we're not having like a Jeepers Creepers moment here. We're all right.
You don't believe me, but you watch. You get up one day and be one of those things flying around somewhere.
Well, I trust Shane to clear those guys out before we get here.
Oh, he's equally as afraid.
Oh, come on, Shane.
There's no doubt about that.
I mean, last night's Halloween. You didn't have any incidents, did you?
No, I only probably had, and I was home. I was on patrol solo because Zoe was out trick-or-treating. And I bet I only had, I don't know, 9 kids maybe?
You got me beat.
Which is weird because the block over, it's like party time USA.
Really?
Oh, but it's all adults. I mean, they're
You've been saying that all week, that Halloween's adult holiday now.
Yeah, and I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they got the great decorations and, all the good candy. And some guys are like handing out Bud Lights. And, I mean, it was wild.
To the parents, not to the kids.
Yeah, never know. But I didn't go out. Like I was literally.
You were on lockdown?
I was at home handing out. We did like mini gummy bears.
Okay.
So, there's plenty.
I'll take it. Pretty sure this is 3 years in a row I haven't had a single trick-or-treater.
Not one?
Do
you turn the lights on?
Yeah.
Do people know you hate kids?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, they might.
Although.
Like my dad used to say, bad news will beat you home.
Who says that's bad news?
Wow.
That's fine.
No, we do live in an older neighborhood. So there's not a ton of kids around.
Right.
I also think it's the dogs. The dogs will
Yeah, leave that. You don't have any of those fake beware of dog signs, do you?
No, but they're pretty noisy. You can hear them from the street.
Oh yeah.
If you're walking
keep
by.
It pushing. Do you have what do you call the front of the entrance of your house?
The porch.
Okay, just curious. Do you have a porch light?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a porch light, got a garage light, got the whole deal.
Well, after listening to you and Avery with the circle versus cul-de-sac, I didn't know if you had a stoop, a porch,
portico.
I'd make you leave if you dropped that. You'd have to go someplace else. Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure you called it up.
I still don't know the difference between a circle and a cul-de-sac.
Never mind.
I still don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody, please tell me.
For as bothered as an Avery can get, I feel she was. And I don't ever see her like that. I don't know if she has it in her, but I think she wanted to just say, shut up, Ravi.
Oh, yeah, 100%. No, I could tell.
I was cheering for it. I was like, say it. I was like, let your inner hate go.
I was kind of pushing it a little bit just to see if I could get her to
you
react
stood
a
in
little
the
bit.
door
Yeah.
being childish.
Yeah, that's what I do sometimes.
Thank you.
We got a better one from her yesterday.
What'd you get yesterday?
Shane, did you clip that one?
I did not clip it,
Oh, man.
but I will.
We'll have to find it.
Yeah.
It's got to have a beep in it.
Oh, no. Did Abe drop a bomb on you?
I was like, Shane, cut that up.
I
Well,
love it.
it wasn't on me. It was about you.
I tend to have that effect on some people.
Well, you're not kidding. You haven't got me to slip up yet. It's close.
I'm still trying
I know.
every day.
That's why I got to be on guard.
Just trying to get
Listen here, guys.
trying to get DB to convert one of those fudges.
So my coach yesterday, we were talking about trick-or-treating, and he's kind of mad in his chair. Like, Coach, man, what's going on? He's like, oh, handing out whole candy bars. We're not whole candy bar families. We're on a budget. These damn kids are lucky I don't cut those things in half and tie the ends up with rubber bands.
Nobody would eat those.
I said, you worried about, your image getting out? I said, you're damn straight. Blue collar around here. Want these kids camping out in my front of my house thinking we're handing out whole candy bars? I'm like, there's nothing that typifies your personality more than that. Can you imagine just snipping those bad boys in half? And
No, I cannot. That's one of those things they warn you about when you're a kid.
yeah,
Like, don't eat the open candy, kids. Somebody's tampered with it.
no.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, gone are the days of, what was it? So it would be like popcorn balls.
Yeah, there was a few of those.
Candy
when I was a
corns
kid.
wrapped in like those little homemade plastic deals.
Mhm.
You
know what?
I don't even think people mess with like Hershey's Kisses anymore, do they?
Not really. I don't think. I don't know. I don't go trick or treating.
I know they're wrapped, but
Nah.
foil's a little suspect.
Yeah. Also, that's a tiny little piece of candy. Like, what are we doing here?
Value, man. You just tear open
if
the
somebody
package.
throws me in like a Hershey's Kiss or a Tootsie Roll, like,
They still make Tootsie Rolls?
pass.
I see them
Pass.
in flavors now.
The flavors are okay, but like just a regular ass Tootsie Roll, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's
Pass.
tough. I'm not a chocolate guy.
I'm just not Tootsie Roll guy. It's disgusting.
Yeah, Zoe sorted through hers in a hurry.
You know what was a bummer when I was a kid
What's up?
is like, and they were very well-meaning people, but after the people got
Of course, because you're getting ready to say something bad about it.
100%.
Yeah.
Because after I got diagnosed with diabetes, people were trying to like be considerate, and so some of my friends' houses on my street would have like apples for me instead of candy, and I was like, I'm not here for apples. What do you? I get you're trying to be cool, and I appreciate it.
Hey, somebody had a nice haul of the little mini canisters of Pringles.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, the little snack deals.
Yeah.
It's kind of legit.
You could go to Costco, get a pretty good number of those for a decent price.
Can you?
Yeah.
So they're clearly for like little people, because I looked at the ones Zoe got and they're probably only inch and a half.
Oh, you're talking about like little.
They're like little peel back canisters.
Oh, I was talking about like kind of the.
No, so it's really not even a canister. It's like the little plastic boat with the foil over top.
Oh, it's like a little cup.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Like a little yogurt.
And it can't be, but I'm gonna guess
Six chips in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The kind that you used to eat as all at once. When
Yeah.
you were a
Make
kid.
it look like you had a duck mouth or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. You were that kid.
Yeah. 100%. You were too. You brought it up.
I didn't do that.
Ain't nobody believe you.
So full disclosure, we didn't really buy Pringles.
Yeah.
I would go over to walk across the street to Coach Huffman's and get his.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, his parents worked for Duncan Hines, and so they got like all the good snacks. He was the Pringles guy, so I would go over there and lift him for his Pringles.
Just jagging Pringles from people's houses?
He knew. It's just, then they would come home and be like, "Ah, that damn DB was over here again." Sometimes it's just like that, man. We didn't have Pringles. We had Betsy Bakers at our house.
What is a Betsy Baker?
So Betsy Bakers were chips you get in like 3 packs, like So there were 3 bags in a big bag of chips.
Mm.
And so you'd open one. They were like brown. And you'd get the chips out. Then you'd roll it back up. And it was like 1 of 3 in a 3-pack.
Yeah.
So that was kind of our brand. I can't remember the other ones. We got the knockoff cheese doodle things. They make them now.
The cheese dude, was it like a Cheeto?
Yeah, except they're the ones that look like an old person's pinky. You know what I'm talking
That's
about?
horrifying.
But they were good. I think they called them curls.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know, but they weren't like your fresh poofy Cheetos. They were like
Not good?
a different version.
Which is not good.
I mean, when you're a kid, you don't know any better.
We used to get those giant things of the cheese puffs from like Sam's.
Yeah.
Like the canisters.
Not that dude.
No?
I don't like my fingers messy.
Yeah.
That started a long time ago.
I don't really like it now, but when I was a kid, just pop those things, you know?
Yeah, you're a poof guy?
Yeah, well, not now, but when I was a kid, I thought it was the greatest thing on earth because you just had this endless, but seemingly endless supply of cheese puffs.
Ryder, she'll
mess around with cheese puff?
Yeah, she's notorious for
Like B.I.G.?
suckering her mom into like getting a bag of chips, like a Big Grab or whatever, on the fly, and she'll eat like 4, and inevitably they'll make their way into our pantry and never to be seen again. So occasionally we'll have like 4 open Big Grab bags in our pantry, and I know exactly what happened. Somebody was conned into getting chips out on the road that they will never see again.
Somebody's got to finish those, man.
They don't. They inevitably always get thrown out. Man, if I'm lying, I'm dying. It's a little bit of a pet peeve.
It sounds like it. Seems like
Yeah, I feel some type of
a little point of contention there.
Yeah. I mean, she's hard to say no to, but you can't fall for the banana in the tailpipe every time. Not every time.
Coming up on the show today, we're going to talk to Terrence Mackey. He is the head football coach for Omaha Central. Him and his team, along with the rest of Class A, get kicked off tonight for first round of Class A state football playoffs. 8 a.m. We've got
T-Mac. It's our first for T-Mac.
Yeah, we haven't talked to him before.
He doesn't do a ton of interviews.
Oh, I'm honored.
No, I mean, I don't know
serious.
how often he's asked.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting because they got some good players.
We got a lot of good players.
That'll be interesting today with Papio.
Yeah. You want the breakdown of that game, you need to call Micah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's the one that started the conversation at the dinner table the other day.
Get him on the phone.
About low floor. No. He better he better be at team breakfast. I didn't even know he wanted to go. So it was kind of late notice, but they have team breakfast today at 7:15. So of course everybody had to move their schedule up 30 minutes.
Well, sure.
Well, and maybe he didn't know, but he didn't drop it until like 8 last night.
That's a little late notice, Micah.
Oh, when you have a little itty bitty at home, it's
give some people some heads up, bud.
Matter of fact, by the time we knew, I think Zoe might have already been in bed.
Speaking of Micah and people doing nonsense things on the way into the end zone, has he ever dropped the ball early?
No, but he's the type of dude that would.
That's what made me think of it.
Hey, I told you when he fumbled right by the goal line when he got hit, he laid on the ground because he had fumbled.
Yeah,
he's that dude. I don't understand it.
I don't either. We do need to talk to him at some point to see if he can explain to me what the drop in the ball thing is. Because it's not even a cool celebration.
I don't know if he would have an answer because that wouldn't be something he would do. He's more apt to probably
like give somebody a peace sign or something on the way in.
He'll do. He's probably more like a Heisman pose.
Okay. Listen. I'm okay if you celebrate once you get in the end zone.
Do you know?
I just need you to get into the end zone.
Do you know the twerk song that's on
the what?
Every twerk song that's on every.
I don't.
It's probably on your algorithm.
Yeah, I may not realize.
You just don't know it's that song.
Yeah.
And everybody dances to it with their knees going back and forth. He would probably do that.
Okay.
I'll show it to you on break.
Like 5 years ago, he'd like hit people with like the gritty or whatever.
No, he's definitely a gritty kid.
Okay.
Yep.
Because so the first time I remember seeing this was Deshaun Jackson, I think in the All-American game.
I saw one about 25 yards from me. One Calvin Jones.
So I had heard about that one. I didn't see that one live.
Oh, it's all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his was just his level of excitement because he was a helmet takeoff guy.
Okay.
until they changed the rule the following
They
year. 'Cause,
couldn't.
I mean, Miami thought it was like Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, so they never kept their helmets on.
Yeah.
So people got tired of getting their heads beat in and then seeing their faces. So then all of a sudden, college football is like, yeah, we're moving of your helmets.
keep
And
those helmets on.
It's a no. We're sick of seeing these Canes act belligerent out here. So it's like, yeah, man, I don't know. I still don't know. I think it was pre-crossing the goal line, but it didn't get called.
It didn't get called?
Mm-mm.
Oh, the Deshaun Jackson one in an All-Star game definitely got called.
Was that Colorado he did that? I think it was Colorado.
Yeah.
It was either Colorado or Kansas. He housed a 48 counter sweep.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah. Got behind Wiegert.
You remember the play, but you can't remember who it was against?
I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. I remember. I can see the play. I'm pretty sure it was Colorado. And because Wiegert played right tackle, so we're running it left. It was 42 counter sweep.
Yeah.
And he housed that bad boy. Split the defense, and it was all she wrote.
I just need you to hold on to the ball for like an extra second.
No, he was I've seen that a long time.
Yeah, I still don't get it.
Somebody had one last week.
I can't remember who it was, but
And there were two in college. I don't know what it is.
I don't get it. And it's happened enough now that you would just be like, hey, maybe we won't do that anymore.
You still see people dive over the pile and lose the ball too, and I have no idea why that still happens. Reaching it over.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny because sometimes it's breaking the plane, and then sometimes it isn't.
So I at least understand the practicality of diving to try and break the plane.
Yeah.
That at least has a purpose. There is no purpose to dropping the ball.
It's exciting.
For who?
I don't know. Whomever's scoring.
I mean,
Is it whom or who? For whom the bell tolls.
I'm not going to be able to tell you on that one.
Scores for thee.
It's exciting.
I feel like that's
maybe a little aggressive.
Yeah, a lot of noises in my head to begin with. I don't need any echoes.
And in our 9 o'clock hour, we're talking to our guy Mike Sautter about the high school playoffs starting tonight.
It'd be in a much better mood.
He will be?
Well, the Jets won.
That's okay. I'm still going to be mean to him.
Oh, he might be ready today. He's been doing all these deep dives.
On what?
Numbers.
Cayenne pepper?
Scoring.
He's trying to find the fountain of youth.
I have no idea.
Giving it to Devontae Adams. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe that's why Devontae Adams can play again.
So he went through concussion protocol, got cleared, and then was like good again?
Apparently.
It's kind of weird.
That's what they tell us. He was on the ground for a long time.
Yeah. I don't know.
That was pretty weird.
Maybe he's wearing a dark visor at nighttime.
Maybe. Can't see what's going on.
Yeah, I have no idea.
He wears his sunglasses at night.
You never can tell.
We'll wrap up the show as we always do with our guy Matt Vrzal. Not Matty. He'll get mad at you. Matthew Vrzal. What's his government name?
Matt.
Is it Matt or is it Matthew? Would he get more mad at me for calling him Matthew or Matty?
His government is Matthew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I've always called him Matty, so I think he lets me ride.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I'll tell you what he calls me. It's never by my name.
You can't say that on air most of the time, I don't think.
Nope.
We'll talk to Verz at 9:45 to wrap up the show. Let's get to our guy, Michigan Lance. Let's talk a little.
No idea where he's been.
Yeah, and then we'll talk a little college football. Lance, what's going on, man? Where you been?
Man, good morning, boys. Man, I've been busy, man, coaching. Coaching 3 levels.
So there's this thing in me that thinks you waited to call until we're talking to Central High Eagles this morning in the coach's corner. Is that it?
No, actually, man, listen, man, I don't know what's going on, except for when I talk to my guys, whether it's Coach Dorsey that's at Central coaching the offensive line or Coach Johnson at South. I just talk to them directly. I don't know what else is going on unless I'm talking to them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's been busy, my man. Just finished up our last game of the season yesterday. So
how did the
regular season? I'm sorry, regular season.
How did it turn out?
You know what? It turned out really well. You know, we finished up 7-3. A lot of people didn't expect us to because we're young. When we actually really could have went, I would say more 8-2. My son thinks we could have beat this one team, but I was like, nah, it wouldn't have worked out. But we go ahead.
The film on the 8th grader you sent me on Huddle, is he playing varsity?
Yes, he is.
Wow.
So we're at a private school, so our middle school kids, it's pre-K through, or it's actually like 6 months to 12th grade. So kids in our middle school can play varsity football. He's a
good player.
Hey, he really good, isn't he? I was like, yeah, I got this one. I watched he was at another school last year, so I was highlighted. He actually, fell into our lap. So So yeah, it's good. I said I gotta show DB this guy.
Yeah, I know your
got one
heart belongs to Michigan, but like we don't need to be passing that along. You just keep that stuff coming here, and we'll see what we can do with it.
What you mean?
Well, I mean with college, getting kids.
Oh no. Oh no. Those days are over. Once my son in high school, hey, we're open to any school. This isn't. We're not doing that. We're gonna. Listen, one thing, hey, you guys talked to my guy, Brandon Williams.
Yeah,
one thing he told me.
He called in last week. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, one thing he told me, your kids need to choose a school that loves them more than they love you. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying, right?
You have to love
choose
them
a
more
school
than
that loves you more than you love them.
Yep.
That's what he.
100%.
Yeah, so that's definitely what we're gonna do.
Are you worried? Are you worried about Michigan?
Yes, I am. I'm. People were talking about Sharon Moore's contract early in the year. I'm glad it is the way it is. Hey, man, you got to show and prove. Like what you're doing right now. Like I don't understand. We had Alex Orji in the system for a couple years now. That doesn't make sense. He comes out looking like he doesn't know how to throw a football. Like that's ridiculous. And then we do I don't know if we were doing the Make-A-Wish Foundation or something because the quarterback we started. All they kept saying was he was a cancer survivor. And I'm like, all right, now tell me about football. Tell me, can he play football? Because it doesn't look like it. Tell me his stats and history from there. So, yeah, I'm not liking the way it's going right now, man. It's not. If I'm Will Johnson, hey, man, you know what? Hey, I'm hurt until the draft because this isn't looking good. We got to figure this thing out.
Wow.
And I'm not. And listen, I'm not a guy that, hey, man, for the long haul, like, we'll give you 5 years of this and nah, man. It don't take that long no more.
Well, I see you emptied the clip in a hurry, bud. Welcome back.
Hey, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I haven't seen, so people, I kind of seen what you kind of put, DB. I'm flying by. So people are kind of complaining about Nebraska, what's going on because they lost to Ohio State and whoever else they lost to. Oh, Indiana. Like, are people wavering? Like, hey, man, chill out. Like, they're 5-3. Here's my thing, man. This is what I've seen about Rule so far. Right now, he has to prove me wrong that he's not doing the right things. And from what I see on the field and what I've seen since day one he's got there, he's doing the right things. He's headed in the right direction. So if people are criticizing, am I wrong, DB?
It's more particular position coaches than it is Coach Rule, but they're clearly drawing a line.
Listen, man, like, guys, listen, it's still a building program. So guess what? As you're building, you're finding out your coaching staff too. So relax. Let them build this thing. You're heading in the right direction. You're one game away from a bowl game that has the longest streak in Power 5 that hasn't been to one. So, I mean, relax, man. Just enjoy the process. You know what I mean? Like, hey, man, this is part of the process. It's just, I'll tell you this, and people who have kids who are playing, let me tell you about my son, man. My son isn't playing a lot as we expected him to play on varsity. But you know what I taught him and all my kids? You better take advantage of your reps. You better take advantage of your opportunities, right? So every time, so the limited reps that he's gotten on varsity, he's either getting a tackle on special teams or when he's playing DB, let's say he got like 6 reps, you know what I mean, 6 plays. Well, he has a pass breakup in one play. He's been doing that for like 5 or 6 games. And as he continues to do that, you can put a nice little highlight film together off of that. You know what I'm saying, DB? Like, people need to relax. Like, there's a process. Yeah, my son ain't playing as much as I thought, but guess what? This is the process. Hey, man, we got to go through this. So, Nebraska fans, relax. Like, this is a guy that didn't even grow up liking Nebraska, even though I'm not on that anymore because my kid, if he wants to go to Nebraska, he go to Nebraska.
Lance, appreciate the call, bud. We'll talk to you later.
Oh, man.
We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. You've got about an hour to come out and join us to get, well, you've got 2.5 hours to come out and join us. But if you want a chance to win tickets, courtesy of our friends from Tickets for Less, to the UCLA game, that's 4 tickets and a parking pass. You got about an hour to get down here before we will announce a winner on that. So make sure you get down here to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. In the meantime, though, DB, Coach Rule had some interesting things to say yesterday, particularly about the secondary.
Yeah, he was pretty matter of fact.
Yeah, and you brought that up with, was it Brunts yesterday?
Yeah.
That
Because I was trying to figure out. Sometimes you can know too much about somebody, so you don't take it at face value. It's
Yeah.
always something
you're
deeper
trying to
than
read
that.
into it too much.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out what everybody else's vibe was when listening to him.
Yeah, there was, I want to say a couple weeks ago, I think it was before Indiana.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the week of Indiana, that he seemed a little less, I don't know, not jovial, but he was a little more reserved, I think, and maybe even a little annoyed, I think would be a fair term. I think there were some narratives going on that he didn't love in the media, and but the last few weeks, I think he's been pretty matter of fact and straight to the point. And I don't know. I haven't read too much into it. I think he's pretty locked in.
So you're going back to the secondary?
Yeah, I mean, so Hartzog's gonna be out.
Yep.
Tommy Hill seems like he's gonna be out, although he said there's a chance that he'll give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at maybe a Jeremiah Charles situation there.
JJ.
I'm gonna have. You mentioned some young guys in Tarver and Sanders going to have to help out. Donovan Jones going to have to help out as well. So it's going to be interesting back there to see kind of, I mean, we're talking about development all the time. We're going to be able to see pretty quickly some of the development of those guys. Although I think with Charles last week, it looked pretty good from what we saw of him.
Yeah, they definitely have some options too. So I'll be, I'm always curious to see, kind of how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It showed you that interaction, the other night with Caleb, and I think for those guys, especially, so there's two position groups where I think they're thinking, we say next man up, but is it really next man up? And I think secondary is one of those positions, right? They practice and they train in such a way where it's like you want interchangeable parts, but sometimes when it comes down to it, it's like we probably gravitate more towards experience.
Sure.
The other one that I think is very, very similar is wide receiver.
Yeah.
And it's weird that those are two groups that kind of they mirror each other, one on the offensive side, one on the defensive side, where you kind of want to ride with know-how and savvy, even though if you open up that box, you maybe have a few more options, but it may be a little more trial and error. Surprisingly, one of the places that they're not afraid to do that is at a pretty critical spot on this football team, and that's linebacker.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they're a little more apt for a baptism by fire, and I think you have to look at it kind of like where the position is, because at wide receiver and then in the secondary, if you blow it, the free world knows.
Yeah.
And some other places where you can
hide it a little bit,
mask it a little more, you're probably more apt to roll the dice.
You think that's why they're so willing to give guys a shot on the defensive line?
Yeah.
Because you can cover up some of that.
And I think it's certainly not what I would call easier, but there are significantly less variables.
Sure.
Playing on the D-line.
Yeah, you're just kind of reading three things and kind of going from there.
You got a handful of things. Head to, via the neck. Read that. Use my hands. I either have to get flat or get for. I mean, it's not nearly as nuanced as any of the other aforementioned.
It's kind of funny because, dude, the guys that you've had step up in the secondary have typically done well. Like Sierra Wright steps in, does pretty well. Like you lose Bly Hill in the spring. So you're dealing with,
and you also have a position coach. Like, this is important. You also have a position coach that's used to coaching older guys. So you develop a preference or a style, or kind of the character traits you're looking for, given kind of what your history is.
It's kind of funny though, because I thought that might go the other way with Butler coming in when he did, that the older guys may not have the built-in advantage that they would have had with Cooper, right? That maybe you look at, hey, yeah, this guy's more experienced, but he's not more experienced with how I teach things, so maybe that experience matters a little less, and he'd be a little bit more willing to go early. But I also think, we heard Coach Rule talk about redshirts quite a bit yesterday, and he was asked a question about, getting guys in there, getting young help in the secondary, and talking about how he wouldn't burn a redshirt at this point for a guy that they had planned that redshirt on, even if they thought they might need him. And so I wonder if that's part of it.
So like personally.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
Yeah,
I know.
It is part of it.
Yes.
Globally, boy, I don't know, because that's so like there's this threshold that you're going to cross where you'll say to yourself, if a guy can help us win, play him.
Here's my question though. Ravi Van Poppel definitely going to help Nebraska win this year.
Yeah, but what I was going to say is, are you thinking multi-year starter? So my general rule of thumb, and I'm totally speculating here. My general rule of thumb that I think this staff thinks is if you have potential for a multi-year starter, they are less apt to play them young.
Save the year, get the bonus year like you talked about.
It seems like It seems like kind of an oxymoron, but I think that's how they think.
So if you look at a guy and you say, "Hey, I think this guy is a rotation piece his whole career," right?
You're probably playing him.
You probably just let him set him out there.
You're probably playing him.
As opposed to like, I'm trying to think. I don't have a good example.
So you know the one that I think is driving people crazy?
Which one?
Carter Nelson.
Sure.
But what I think is not that you can replicate his talents a lot of other places, because there aren't a lot of 6'6" guys that
run and move.
That are. I won't even say run, because it's not really his foot speed and it's not his twitchiness. It's the combination of all
of everything in the size.
Right. He's a 7.5 or above in all of them.
Yes.
May not be a 10. Right. May not be a 9, but it's.
But it's a really nice.
6'6".
Yeah.
So, but I think they think, you know what? It's maybe not as unicorny as you think. We have some guys in the fold. You got I'm not going to put him in the discussion because he still has to be a lot more productive. But you'll look at a guy like Isaac Jensen or some other guys around the country. There are probably more types of Carter Nelsons around the country.
Sure.
Than we may think. You're looking at one at Michigan and Loveland.
Yeah.
Like those guys are, I'm not going to say they're all over the place.
It does kind of feel like the tight ends sort of fall off of trees now. And I know he's playing wide receiver for Nebraska.
Yeah, but that was to get him ops, right?
Yeah.
So people are like, wow, you played him in maybe, is it 3? He may have.
I think he's got one left, maybe.
He may have one left.
Yeah.
But he dresses all the time. Right? So it's like, okay, what are we doing? And
feels like if they found a place to use him, they would.
They would.
Yeah.
And so the difference between like a Carter Nelson and a Van Poppel, at least as I'm kind of looking at it, is I think they're thinking
Van Poppel's like a dude.
Yep.
And harder to find. I mean, defensive linemen are harder to find than tight ends. Like that's not a slide on anybody.
Yeah, and then people got to be able to handle it.
But like especially a D tackle.
Yeah, like
a dynamic D tackle is rare.
Right.
Those are rare dudes.
Especially at Van Poppel's age.
100%.
So you're less apt to roll the dice.
You want
to
the
go
bonus
find
year.
another one. You want a bonus year. That's kind of how I think they look at it.
No, I get that for sure. That makes a ton of sense. And I mean, we've talked about this with Sautter before. Or I have at least. I think you were part of that discussion where I'm just like, hey man, why are there so many good tight ends in Nebraska?
Yeah.
Like it kind of does feel like they just grow on trees around here. Where you've got like, D1 tight end over here, D1 tight end over here. Like there's so many of them, Nebraska can't even take all of them.
Yeah, it's been a weird run. I go back to probably 2014-ish.
Yeah.
It's just
kind of like a 10-year run of producing a ton of high level. I mean, you got guys in the NFL. Like these are real tight end talents. And
100%.
I think it's a less rare skill set, especially around here, than a defensive tackle, to your point. Coming up next, we're going to talk to Terrence Mackey. He's the head football coach at Omaha Central. He will get his playoff run started tonight. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Coach Terrence Mackey, head football coach for Omaha Central. Coach, how are you this morning?
Doing pretty good. How you guys doing?
Coach, how we doing, buddy? Wait, look, you sound a little sleepy. There's no way. I know what you do 24 hours a day. You're up and at 'em, man. We're not. We didn't wake you up early, did we?
Oh no. You know what? I got a meeting at 8:45 this morning. So yeah.
Yeah, that is. It's that cool, laid back voice, man, that's allowed you to invest. There it is. That's allowed you to invest in kids, man. How's this run been for you? Considering, man, this is everything. This is the goal, man. The postseason, and you're dab smack in the middle of it.
Yeah, it's been a good thing. The kids believe in themselves. We started off when we beat Creighton Prep in the last seconds, and after that, it's just been coming along. They've been buying in every week. We've been doing what we set out to do, and so we still got one more tonight.
Coach, yeah, you mentioned that Creighton Prep game. You kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start, played some really good competition. You're 2-3 through your first 5 games. Was there kind of a switch during that Creighton Prep game where, you got a lot of young talent, guys started to click and figure it out a little bit?
They just stepped up, right? We just stepped up, and we stopped shooting ourselves in the foot, with the penalties. We stopped that, and it just clicked in, and they started believing in themselves, and that was it.
It's interesting. It's like 6 degrees of separation. I watched the program from afar. You've known me, my family, my whole life, which is, it's 50 years, right? It's a long time.
Benny was a good guy.
I appreciate that. So, coach with Coach Daly, played with Abdul, Dorsey's family. There's this involvement. There's this part of me that cheers from afar, right? Obviously, my dad's history there and all my siblings that went there. When you took that job, and you think Central, some people will call it kind of the crown jewel of the Metro. Did you feel was there any pressure? Did you feel like, oh man, like this is Central, here we go?
Yeah, you know what? Last year when we came up 4-5, we had a couple games that was close. And my previous job, it wasn't a sense of urgency for you to get to winning all the games. It. We won a couple games.
Coming from Benson, yeah.
Yeah, we won a couple games. We were appreciated. But I think there, you expected to win in Central. And when we got the kids to buy in, that's what started happening. But I always want them to, to appreciate what's going on, to learn. We started learning from our mistakes and doing the right things. And like I said, I got a heck of a coaching staff. They put in the work and work with the kids. And then, like I said, the kids bought in. They want to be better.
Coach, I'm always curious about this. And obviously, I talk to my co-host about it from time to time. But he gets on my nerves sometimes, so can't talk to him too much outside the show.
Mackie probably feels the same way.
But,
I'm shocked.
Coach, what's kind of the dynamic like when you've got some hyper talented young guys that have a ton of interest from schools, not just here locally but around the country? Like, what's kind of the balance like of trying to help them through that whole process, which is kind of a whole big thing in and of itself, and still keep your eyes focused on, hey, we still have a season to get to. We've got an opening round playoff matchup against a good Papio team tonight. Like, how do you manage that balance?
You just tell them, don't believe the hype. You still have to stay focused on what we need to do. Okay, I'm proud of them, with the offers that the kids are getting. But we set out with these playoffs. We're not in it for one game. We want to be in it to win it. And so we just have to keep their eye on the prize.
I talked to my main man, Coach Kite, a couple of weeks ago. It's probably about a month ago now. We were exchanging film, and he was getting us some huddle film, and I'm just talking to him about the development at the quarterback spot during NEBPreps every week. I always find a way to talk about B.J. Newsome. I think as a quarterback, he's one of the better-kept secrets in the Metro. I love his poise. He's added the scrambling, the QB run game that you guys heard us with to his repertoire this year. Like, talk a little bit about his growth and leadership from the quarterback spot.
He's a proven leader. He's a nice young man. When you
he's a great kid. Yeah.
Yeah. When you talk to him, he's always looking for ways to get better. He's a good student. We have kids on the team that are just getting they're just good kids. You know, they're gonna be good citizens. Like, you don't have to worry about anything happening with them. You know, they're gonna do the right thing. And BJ's one of those kids where you know he's gonna do the right thing all the time. And you know, you can just talk to him.
Coach,
And he has that leadership, and the kids listen to him.
His I think I'm proud is a weird word to use because he's not mine, but his dad is one of my sister's best friends, and so I've watched him since he's grown up. His poise, I think, is pretty impressive because I think it kind of calms your team down too, especially offensively. Like, you can't undersell that.
Right, he just has it in him. You know, he's been working like Coach Kite worked with him, and he just does a good job with him. Like I said, I got a heck of a coaching staff, you know, and that really helps.
Coach, as we kind of turn our attention to your matchup tonight with Papio, you know, we've seen that Papio La Vista team play tough against Millard South, play tough against West Side. What are some of the challenges that Papio brings to the table for you?
They're physical.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that physicality, you know, we have to deal with that, but we want to be physical with them too. They got some good playmakers over there. We got to stop the playmakers. We got to make sure that we tackling. We got to make sure we wrapping up. That's the thing. We want to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. Just don't let them get started. You know, if we keep it on them, take that confidence away from them. We let them get that confidence, then it's going to be a long night. But if we don't, if we can get that physicality and take the confidence away, then it should be a pretty good game for us.
Coach, do you like the fact that it's a quick turnaround, or do you not want your kids to think, well, we just saw them, so there's not as much attention to detail? Like, which part of the rematch do you like?
No, you know, it's hard to beat a team. I always hear Abdul say it's hard to beat a team twice, and I believe that. So I'm sure they've been looking at film, seeing what they didn't do right, and they're going to come and correct that tonight. And so we have to do the same thing. You know, we got to go in there like they beat us the first time. You know, we got to go in there. We got to stay hungry. And I think the kids, since we've been winning, they are hungry. Like I said, we're not in it for one game and be out of it. We want to be in it to win it. So we have to prove a point.
You guys, Abdul, Coach Daly, you guys have been involved at the Boys and Girls Club seemingly forever with young people and growth and development. And you know, that's the part that I appreciate with the community, investing in kids. How important was it for you, or was it at all, to now be able to see them all the way through as now the head of a high school staff, where you don't just have to get them at first, second, third grade. You get them. You could see some of these guys from youth all the way through the opportunity to get a diploma.
Yeah, you know, we want them to be effective in the community. We're not going to be around forever, so we want these guys to do what they need to be doing, go out, get their education, go play football, and then come back and lead the community.
Coach,
we got a tight-knit community, tight-knit family.
Yeah.
Coach, I know that you've, because DB talks about it to me all the time, you didn't get into coaching the same way a lot of these guys do. What was it about coaching that made it so important to you, even though you've got this whole other career and kind of led this whole other life, to get into it and be involved at it at this level?
Well, you know what? When I was a young man at the boys club, I had a coach named Carl Wright.
Oh, my goodness.
And he was he was my role model. You know, he grew up with my father at Tech High School. And when I made some different choices. I started out wanting to be a football player, and then, I burned out. Okay,
yeah.
And then I was like, well, dang, I still want to be involved with these kids. So I started coaching at the boys club. Trying to be like Mr. Wright, and just kept doing it. And then I finally got into the middle school doing stuff, and then finally I was like, wow, let me try to do it high school. So I was able, like I said, Benson gave me the opportunity. That's my alma mater. They gave me the opportunity to try to do something there, and then it just turned from there. It just started clicking from there. After we started winning at Benson, then it started clicking. Well, maybe I can get a job someplace else, and I did, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for Central for allowing us to come there and help out
That's
and enlighten other kids' lives there.
it's amazing. You
'Cause
mentioned,
it's all about working with the kids and making them better citizens.
yeah, Coach Wright and my father, obviously good friends. One digit separates our phone numbers. So for the first 18 years I'm living at home, I answered the phone. I'd say, Benning residence, hello. And they'd think, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking for Carl Wright. That's funny.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, best
Yeah, he
wishes
was the
tonight,
man.
Coach. Yeah, he was. Best
Thank
wishes
you,
against
thank you. I
Papia.
appreciate it.
You got it.
Thank you for having me on. Okay.
That's Coach Mackey from Central. Coming up next, we've got Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, kicking off hour number 2, live on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we are live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by our guy Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. Tim, what's going on, man?
Hey, not too much. Excited to be back at Memorial Stadium. It's been a while.
It has been a minute.
I don't know who I said this to. Maybe it was Sharp. It seems like we haven't been there forever, but what's it been?
It's been a month.
Like a month?
Like right out of
About a month.
Do you remember how to get there? That's the key.
Does anybody have better advice on me on where to park? Because I'm still working on that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't get the fancy media parking pass like DB does over here. So
I can barely get it.
some of us are just out here struggling. Tim, I want to jump right into this because I know we always end up talking actual football with you, and we end up forgetting about some of the recruiting stuff. So I want to start with the recruiting stuff so we actually get to it. I know there's a big weekend for Nebraska trying to flip a 4-star. Like, tell us a little bit about who's going to be in town this weekend.
Yeah, so the headliner obviously is Chase Lofton. Nebraska's working there, trying to pull off that flip. I think that one's an interesting one, just because we've talked about this when he made the decision over the summer and in the week since. It felt like Nebraska actually finished not even runner up, but third in that recruitment initially, and to maintain the presence that they did since, and to be able to get him back on campus. The only visit he has planned, and feels like things are trending well for Nebraska here. I know some people look at this and are like, hey, this is another tight end addition to a room that's pretty loaded. If you go back and watch his film from his senior year and even his junior year, and some of the things he does, he just fits. And you listen to what Matt Rule says about wanting to be a positionless offense. He just fits that. He's what they're looking for. He's a big vertical threat, or a big pass catcher that can stretch defenses vertically. You watch him run routes, how big he is, and how fluid he moves at that size. It's impressive. I'm a big fan of Chase, from what I've seen his senior year. I know there's been something that's been made of like, hey, he hasn't really shown like this insistence to stay home. Well, here it is. He's coming on campus, and I think Nebraska's going to have a chance to pull that one off. That's the headliner. And, in 2026, they're getting ahead with a couple of defenders. A guy I'd keep a close eye on, Nolan Wilson. He's a 4-star defensive end who over the last month or so has landed offers from Alabama and Florida and all these SEC programs. Nebraska's in that mix. He's from the same high school as Dante Dowdell. He's coming in with Dante's father and Dante's family. That's a good opportunity for Nebraska to get involved there. Looking ahead to 27, they've got 3 top 50 prospects in the Rivals top 100. So they're getting out way ahead in the 2027 class with the number 1 receiver in the country, a top 5 running back, and another top pass catcher in the class. So it's going to be a good weekend. I think Nebraska is going to have an opportunity to potentially land a commit or two to the 2026 class, and really get ahead with 2027 in just terms of getting these guys on campus.
TV. Oh, go ahead, Ravi.
I just wanted to ask you real quick about Lofton, because we have talked about him quite a bit with you, and that's a guy that I'm curious if you've had a chance to figure out both because I don't think either of us, I think we talked, I don't think either of us actually expected him to sign at Florida State, and I don't totally know why. We just kind of got this vibe, I think, or at least I did. I don't want to speak for you. And I was like, yeah, I don't think he's going to end up there, even when he committed. So do you know what happened there? Is it just the 1-7 start and everything at Florida State? And you mentioned Nebraska not even really being the runner-up there. How were they able to make up that ground?
Yeah, I think it's just consistency, and it comes back to that with the staff of just like, hey, even when he committed, even when, there were times where, the love wasn't necessarily being shown back, Nebraska stayed consistent. And I think, like Marcus Satterfield played a role. I know a lot of people around here don't want to really give him a whole lot of credit for things anymore, but, he played a role in that one. And to his credit as well, Keith Williams is kind of taking over in the tight ends rooms, done some work there too. So those two specifically, I again, like with Florida State, it's part of it's a 1-7 start. Part of it is just like I think, like we talked about, I think when he initially committed it never felt like he was going to end up there for a variety of reasons. You kind of see where college football's trending with the SEC and the Big Ten. You kind of see, like for him, the family relationships in the Midwest. If there was any place other than Nebraska, it felt like it was going to be A&M, which was a school I think Nebraska had to overcome some ground on. And that just happened, I think, with the proximity to home, and again the consistency of the staff relative to an A&M staff that is as aggressive as they are on the transfer on recruiting. So they had moved on to other targets, and they've kept multiple fires or coals in the fire. Nebraska was kind of just all in on Lofton as like the sole remaining tight end on the board, and I think that's part of the reason why they're getting this visit from him and now are positioned where they are to potentially flip him.
Yeah, as good as you are every week, I have no reason to doubt your recon, but I'm going to validate something you said. I think the fact that Nebraska kept the lines of communication open, even after I think Lofton says, yes, Nebraska's got the type of staff TV that's going to say, okay, hey, we wish you the best, go do your thing. But in kind of like this exit interview, what was it that kept you from picking us? So I think they kind of gather data, they get an answer, they talk to the family, and I think they try to accentuate their strengths more than play to the weaknesses. And I think the fact that they did keep those lines of communication open really helped this thing get to where it's at. I think you're spot on in terms of how it evolved. Spot on.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And and I think part of it, what also helps, in my opinion, the camaraderie of the 2025 in-state group, like those guys really get along, and they've done their part as well to peer recruit and make guys, in the state that want to come to Nebraska feel like, they are wanted.
Tim,
I don't care.
DB's just throwing stuff out here. Tim, let's move on to actual football on the field here. But let's start with Ohio State. How did you feel about the way Nebraska responded to that Indiana game? Obviously, we talked a lot about not taking moral victories and stuff like that in that Ohio State game. But, you could probably count on one hand the number of people in this entire state that thought that Ohio State game was going to go as well as it did. Like, how do you measure progress versus not taking moral victories there?
I mean, I think you have to measure progress. And I think, something I saw coming out of that game was, oh, great, another moral victory game. And it's like, okay, listen, I get that this fan base is frustrated about the, like, moral victory, such like a trigger word, a trigger phrase. But you have, like, that was the last staff. The last staff is the one that was, like, hanging their hats on moral victories. This staff hasn't really done that. But when they get these opportunities to actually have moral victories, you got to give them the credit, And there's a reason they feel like, when Rob Dvorak on the radio on Wednesday night, they left that locker room disappointed because they felt they should have won that game. That's the biggest thing. It's not that Nebraska went into the game and was like, oh, we came up close, good for us. It was that they were disappointed and fired up by the fact that they felt that they should have come out with that win. And so I think you're going to see a fired up Nebraska, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, the rest of the year, because they know what they're capable of now. And again, like, I think we're going to look back on this year. I said it last week. I think we're going to look back at the end of the year. That Indiana result's going to be an outlier for a couple of different reasons, because of who Indiana is, because of the Nebraska team that showed up that Saturday in Bloomington, and just because of the point of the season where that was relative to everything else. I think you're going to look back and be like, okay, well, for the most part, I liked everything Nebraska did this year except for that one. And then when you have the full context of the season, you can zoom out and be like, oh, maybe I overreacted to that result in real time.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think, I'm looking at this matchup for UCLA, fairly one-dimensional. We'll see what the bye week brings in terms of them being able to add something in the run game. But Nebraska's a mirror image isn't exactly right, but Coach Rule did describe how they like to play, right? The ball comes out quick. The running backs on the perimeter catching the ball are an extension of the run game. They haven't had a ton of success running it consistently. How much do you think familiarity helps Nebraska in this one, considering some of what UCLA does? I mean, they'll throw it 40-plus times now. Nebraska has a good idea of what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah, I think I think Nebraska's kind of expecting everything just because of they know and the way Matt Rule called it and a couple people have called it at this point. Eric Bieniemy offense and at a bye week, and he's going to be fired up because of his personal ties to this rival or this matchup as well. Nebraska, I mean, UCLA is going to run plays and not necessarily an offense, and that's the biggest thing is Nebraska has to be ready because they're going to throw you the kitchen sink play to play. It may not string together, it may not sequence together, they may not put a whole lot of drives, but they still have the skill players that I think are athletic enough to make some home run plays happen. And so I think Nebraska's going to have to be on their P's and Q's defensively this weekend because again, and you also have to factor in this is an Ethan Garbers that's playing probably the most confidence he's ever had coming off what he did against Rutgers.
And despite the 9 picks too, he does come across as a guy that has really good command of where guys need to be in this passing game. Yeah,
you watch him and you're I watch him and I'm like, this doesn't look like a guy that's thrown more picks and interceptions this year. For a variety of reasons, because of the offensive issues and a lot of different things. And, he's not a perfect quarterback or even like a pro or anything by any means, but has a better command than you think when you just look at his stat line and you look at, the offensive struggles they have. I think that schedule also as well, they are better than their record indicates just because of the teams they've played this year.
Tim, speaking of Garbers and being a little bit better or a little bit different than the stat line indicates, his rushing numbers aren't going to jump off the page at you, but we've seen his ability to hurt people with his legs as well. What's your level of concern with Garbers hurting Nebraska on the ground?
Somewhat, but I mean, if it gets to that point where that's how he's beating you, that's you take that. I mean, they're not going to win a game off the Ethan Garbers run game, So if that's what it takes to get some positive plays going, I think as a staff and as a program, I think Nebraska takes that on Saturday.
TV, when you're looking at Nebraska offensively, I mean, we've heard kind of the murmuring the last handful of weeks, and screen game, you weren't here, but screen game is now the new gap from the Bo Pelini era, where we talk about it as though we have good command of it. When you look at the execution versus intent, or the QB check with me's, what would you like to see different if Nebraska's going to stay the course?
I mean, my thing is at this point, it's with the screen game is we've seen them be creative with it. That Ramir Johnson screen, I think against Rutgers, where it's off of the the little reverse thing they run to Jacory, where they fake the reverse and then throw it back flat. And I think they have to get back to that, being a little creative. If you want to make the screen game go, you got to be a little creative with it and find some of those spark plays. And honestly, me and Steve have kind of harped on this all week. We really think Nebraska found something in the run game last week with some of those traps and whams they ran. I think there's some sustainability there. And I think if you're able to get something consistently in the ground game, which we'll see, UCLA presents a big test. Jay Toa, that linebacker room, they attack the run pretty well. Even though they haven't faced it a whole lot, they attack it pretty well. And so if Nebraska is able to get something consistently going in the ground game, perhaps you see them pull back a little bit on those screens, because again, the whole point of screens is just to, kind of replicate the ground game as much as they can when they couldn't.
Yeah, Tim, Coach Rule mentioned how really no one's been able to run the ball super successfully against UCLA.
Yeah.
How do you kind of pair that with your belief that they've found something in the running game that can be a little bit more successful? What does success look like on the ground against UCLA?
Better find a way to move the nose. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's the big thing is just, again, finding ways to get things going, and I think for me, success would just look like, hey, can we average 6 yards a pop? Can y'all do that on Saturday? That would be success, at least for me, on the ground. And yeah, I mean UCLA. I'll say this too. Like I mean, this like that no one's been able to run on them consistently, but also they've also faced the like second least amount of rush attempts in the Big Ten. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of a stat that
That's a good distinction with their EP. I like that. That's a good deep pull. That's why I think there's only really a couple of games you can look at, and I think Indiana's one, but even Indiana's offense, like their run expectancy is so. One of the reasons Indiana's good is because they're unpredictable of when they're going to run the ball, right? So they're kind of an outlier, but that's why I think watching Penn State is critical, because they're the one team I think that made a concerted effort in multiple ways, because Kodanicki is a very good and creative OC. Penn State still struggled for the majority of that game to really run the football. TV.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and especially considering what that unit is, that's something that it stuck with me too. You know, those numbers, and I'll say this with Indiana too. I think Indiana is a team that this year feels like they ride the hot hand. Like again, throw game's working, they'll throw it 6 times in a row. If you know Rourke's hot. But on the flip side, yeah, I think with Nebraska, like again, I'd want to see progress and I'd like to see progress, but you know, I feel like you're going to have more rushing success overall against USC here in a couple of weeks than you will against UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, people look up and they'll see that they're top 15 in rush defense, and they'll be surprised. But part of it is I do love your context though, because I think that matters. But two things can be true at once. The sneaky part about them is they're really good up the middle. They've got a great nose. I love their Mike backer. Their safeties bring some drama too. Nebraska better take care of the ball as running backs kind of coming through the hole, because those safeties will get down into the box in a hurry.
Yeah, you can tell they specifically defensively, and again, it hasn't been the season they've wanted, but they really take on the personality of their head coach. Like they really like embrace Deshaun Foster, specifically defensively. And you know, I go back to something I think it was Matt Rule or Tony White said about how, you know, great nose play just makes your linebackers look better. And you see how you look at the stat sheet and how active UCLA's linebackers are. You watch the film, you look at Jay Toe, like Jay's a guy. And I know people are like, oh, if he's at UCLA, it's a guy that entered the transfer portal, one from USC to go to UCLA, and then a second time this offseason and had offers from everywhere, but chose to come back and stick it out with UCLA, but could have gone anywhere. Like this is a guy that should be playing at Texas right now, or could be playing at, you know, USC or whatever right now. Like he could be in a couple of different spots.
Tim, as you look at, you know, obviously the up the middle that they're really good, but we've heard about the secondary with UCLA. We talked to Matt Stevens, their color guy, earlier this week, maybe having some issues in the passing game. Do you think the best way for Nebraska to attack that is to try and kind of go off that play action pass game by establishing some of those run concepts you're talking about? Or you think it may have to work backwards in this game, considering the run defense seems to be their strength?
I think you work backwards in this game. I think this is a game where you get back to what Matt Rule wants to do, where you start the game, you try and put up some points early on offense, and then the second half, if you can get to it, in that second half, you kind of just sit on the ball and try and chew out clock and enforce the run and some short plays. But, you know, I think Dylan Raiola hinted at it this week, and I think like the confidence he gained last week with some of the downfield throws and seeing his receivers able to get open against Ohio State, I think Nebraska's going to try and threaten vertically a little bit this week to start the game, especially early. And I think it's going to be a point of emphasis. And then as the game goes on, you know, you kind of get back to that ground game. And, you know, again, if Nebraska is who they are, like I'd like to see Nebraska win a game Matt Rule wants them to win, which is leaning on Dante Dowdle to run for 75 plus yards in the fourth quarter.
So let me stay right there, TV. So offensively, because I'm with you, I do think Nebraska will take some shots outside the numbers, especially off of run action. But when you look at the kind of committee that Nebraska wants to use at the running back spot, what combinations would you go with that you like?
I really like. I've been a big Dante guy all year, but like seeing the stuff he has success with, and when it starts to click for him, it feels like he's a guy that needs some time to get into rhythm. and also needs like a lead blocker or a hole in front of him. I think, like, personally, like, where I'm coming around on is I think Emmett needs to be your every down back. And then when you need a change of pace, or it's like, okay, we're going in I formation, or we know we're going to have this gap open, let's bring Dante out there and see if we can get him into a rhythm and then ride the hot hand as long as he's hot. But he's a guy that I think at this point in his career, he's still young. He's a sophomore. Like, he's a guy that right now is a touch and go guy. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not, it's just tough to get anything going. And so I think at this point, I think Emmett's got to be the guy. You mix in Ramir in there as a pass catcher and for some of the stuff he can do, in a phone booth. But I think it's got to be Emmett 1, mixing Dante a good bit in there, and then Ramir at that 3 spot.
Tim, did you feel like Dante Dowdell found anything last week? I thought he ran better against Ohio State than maybe we'd seen him run all year. It seemed like he got through a couple of those, like he was able to step through a couple of those initial tackles in a way we hadn't seen for a lot of the season. Like, you think that's an outlier or something he can kind of carry through the rest of the season?
It didn't feel like it felt more like anything, and it's like it's what we've seen from him in games previous too. When he's got a fullback in front of him, or when he's got a little bit of a runway, he can really go. And I think that's what he had because of some of the ways some of those blocks set up for him. Is he had a bit of a runway, coming out of the backfield on some of those runs, and once he got into that rhythm, which we saw that early in the year too. He gets 3-4 carries that go for 6+ yards, and all of a sudden that fourth carry is going for 19. And we'd seen that in early in the year, so it felt like it was getting back to that a little bit. And again, it's just more than anything, it's consistency of the staff being like, okay, run game's working, let's keep just like spamming that until we get something to break, and that's what they did. And I think he found something, just in the sense that I feel like he's getting his confidence back, because I think I remember saying this somewhere after, I think it was game 2 after that Colorado game. The way he was walking around after that Colorado game, the weeks after, he was moving around with some confidence. I started to see that body language again on Saturday against Ohio State. So I'm curious to see what pregame Dante we get, because you can tell when he's feeling it.
TV, let me get you out of here on this. When you look at kind of the evolution of their emergence in the conference, you got Southern Cal, UCLA, obviously with Washington and Oregon. When you look at kind of recruiting and its fertility, does UCLA have any staying power compared to the other three, or how would you rank the West Coast bias as they try to get integrated in the Big Ten?
It's tough for them right now. I mean, they have a couple things going for them, and I really think a strong end to their season, because of how tough the start of this year was for them, is kind of critical there. It's just tough to sell. Like I like, part of it is, I think what they have an opportunity to do now, and I wonder if they do that, with as the thing shifts, is, hey, we're the LA school that's building something right now, because right now, Lincoln Riley's kind of like the stale, old guy at this point, and so I think he has that opportunity to kind of sell this, like, hey, we're young, we're a staff that's going to get a bit of some time here. We're going to get 2-3 years. You can still play in LA, and you have an opportunity to compete in the Big Ten. I'm not super worried about them, just because they haven't really shown an effort to be a real threat in any areas Nebraska's in right now. Like, they're not in the Midwest. They're not in Texas. They're not really in Florida. They're not really battling Nebraska. If Nebraska finds himself on the West Coast, you have to be a little wary of them. But right now, I'm not super threatened of them. And we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some staff changes there after year one, just because I think you need a little more recruiting juice to stick around and stay competitive with the rest of the Big Ten powers.
That's Tim Verghese from Inside Nebraska. Tim, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, sir. See y'all tomorrow.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We are back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. We've had some lovely friends come out and join us here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill this morning so that we can get ready for a little football game tomorrow.
Yeah. So
and some football games tonight.
Yeah. Well, that's my first.
That's what you're
first priority.
First and foremost concerned about.
But Kent hit me with these like, thanks, DB. No. I had myself convinced we were set to roll UCLA after that interview with Tim. I'm convinced it's now a 50-50 game. I don't think it's a So UCLA is weird.
I don't think it's 50-50. I do think they're better than people think.
That part is true. I don't know if it's good enough to win, but UCLA is good in some areas.
Yeah.
That could give Nebraska fits. They're good at the nose. They're good at the linebacker spot, and I think you're going to like their safeties. They're physical. So, but they're also the same team that gives up 55% of third down conversions, which is last
And
in the country.
absolutely not sustainable.
But it's weird because they only give up like 3.8 per rush.
Yeah.
So they're hard to run the ball on, but people don't run the ball enough on them. I don't know if it's because they're like, there's plays to be made outside
Right.
the numbers, so let's throw
maybe
it.
you get enamored with like, I can just make hay over here.
So it's just weird. And I do think Indiana is an outlier because Indiana is so similar with their run-pass looks that their EPA is always going to be off because they're versatile.
Yeah.
And they read everything.
I'd say they're a little unpredictable too.
So it's like you may get a 1st and 10, and they may RPO you, and you're thinking, oh, shoot, this is a rundown. Well, you may give them a pass look, so they throw it.
Yeah.
So their EPA, their variance is going to be pretty high.
Because
I try to throw them out.
Yeah.
That's how they were getting Nebraska.
Because they don't really care what they do. They're just going to
Nope.
do the opposite of what you like. They're just going to do what you give them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how that offense is built,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Remember I told you, inside run threat, perimeter conflict, vertical threat.
Yep.
That's the whole core of what they do. I got a question in Nebraska City yesterday I thought was really, really interesting. And the guy asked me, he said, okay, I'm kind of over the quick screen game or whatever. He said, why doesn't Nebraska work kind of more one-on-one or the slant concepts? And I said,
Which is what Schaefer brought up, the in-breaking routes.
so that's a great question, but offensive play design, especially in the passing game, is usually based on concepts.
Sure.
It's typically not predicated on winning one-on-one, right? Because even in the NFL, it's where they can take advantage of matchups. They still move guys around.
Yeah, you're still trying to scheme a guy open.
Right.
Like that's what we saw.
And that's the NFL. Nebraska's passing scheme isn't built on winning one-on-ones, which is where a lot of like the quick look-ins, the slant games, they happen because you do have to win.
Yeah.
And they see a ton of man-to-man. So I think, well, I still don't. It's such a great catch. I guess you give it to him.
I still thought he was out. I thought the knee was out.
Me too, but it was such a good catch. I might give it to him. But they're going to start to see more man-to-man now because I think they got guys upstairs that see zone versus man and concepts. And
Well, they see the numbers that Raiola has against zone, and like people just aren't going to give him that anymore.
so I think tomorrow is one of those things where you do have to take some chances with your one-on-ones and give your guy a shot. They were doing it early.
I am really interested about your kind of assertion that people don't run enough on UCLA because that can really impact, like that can skew numbers,
Yeah, 100%.
right? And, if you do have a compromise, probably is not the right word, but if you have a secondary where you think you can win against.
You see it in the NFL a ton, where teams are so vulnerable on the back end, people don't even bother.
Yeah, like
running
what's the point?
They don't even bother running the football.
Because most of the time, what you're doing is, like we talked about, you're running to set up the pass, right?
Yeah.
You're running to set up other things. If you just have the other things, why run?
Hey, apostrophe, who was the NFL team a couple of years ago that had the fake rushing numbers being good against the run because everybody threw the ball on them?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember who it was.
And they were like number 1 or number 2 again. Well, that might have been who it was. He said the Saints. It's like they were so porous
the Colts were like that with Manning too.
Yep.
People used to think that
because they were playing from behind.
Yeah, because Manning would always get out ahead of them, a couple touchdowns early, and then they're just chucking it around, and the entire defense was built to basically stop the pass because nobody ever tried to run.
Yeah, an interesting stat for UCLA would be the amount of time they played from behind.
Yeah.
Because when teams get up on you, a lot of times they're getting that passing game going early.
Yeah.
So I just know that the yards per carry when they're under 4 like that in the mid threes, that's typically a pretty good run defense.
Yeah.
I just don't know like when the bow breaks. Like is it 25 or less carries and they're pretty stout, and after that you start to get into their depth?
Yeah.
Because that's how Penn State got them.
Yeah.
Penn State wore them down. That first half was,
which I watched that last night.
The first half was messy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was ugly. It was grimy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was.
But it eventually, and Singleton was the only one that got going.
Yeah. And, but like that kind of is encouraging to me because I think, like we've heard him say it all the time, like Coach Rule wants to play grimy football.
Yeah.
So if that's the kind of game it takes to win this, I think he's okay there.
That's why I was telling Kent. Like, I just think it's going to be a low-scoring, grimy kind of game. I think 20. I could easily see. 23 points will win that thing.
Yeah, I think so.
So
I'm not saying Nebraska can't score more than 23 points, but I think if UCLA wins, it's got to be 23 or less.
I could see a world in which 17 wins that thing.
I think so too. I could very much see and people aren't going to like this because we thought the world was ending when this game happened. I could very much see a Penn State style game, or not a Purdue style game, a Nebraska-Purdue style game, where Nebraska's kind of grinding it out. The dam breaks late for UCLA. Obviously, Nebraska scored 3 offensive touchdowns in that game, right? So that's what you're talking about, right? That 17-23 range.
Yeah, the difference, though, I think, I kind of like the premise. I think the difference now between where Nebraska was against Purdue and where Nebraska is against UCLA, especially back home, is I think sequentially they'll think about play calling different now that they have confidence in kicking field goals.
Sure, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, so you're talking about you may get a little more early than you did against Purdue.
If I'm Nebraska tomorrow, and this goes against everything I typically believe, but I like winning more than I like being right, is I'd probably throw the ball on early downs more against UCLA.
Yeah. I mean, you got to take what's there, right? Like if that's where they're most vulnerable.
Yeah. I would probably I just want to loosen those safeties up.
Yeah. Make it easier on your run game.
And I think working backwards, like I said yesterday, pitching backwards would work.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, and I think we'll find out early what how Nebraska feels, because I agree. Like just on the matchup and what you think, I think Nebraska throwing the ball early makes the most sense. But maybe there's a part of me that just thinks they may say, hey, we're going to try and break you. We'll throw it later.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out later.
And our inbox, finishing drive rate is a huge key on both sides. Nebraska is 11th at crossing the 40, but NU is 116th at points per trip. Crossing the 40, bad. Flip side, UCLA's defense is 132nd in allowing teams to cross the 40 and 115th at points per trip.
Is that severe?
I don't know who it was.
Oh.
It's anonymous. So
I was a finishing drive rate. I immediately assumed severe.
But along those lines, it's what I'm talking about. And I want to go back to something that Blake said earlier in the week. Nebraska's still continuing to get trips into the red zone, although the points
it's coming down
per trip is coming down. At some point,
you think the dam breaks.
You would think. Now the variable is elevating competition.
Yes. They're also
right? It's getting tougher.
And kicker's a big variable as well.
Yeah.
Want to announce our winner of the tickets is John Livingston. That is our winner.
Your guy.
For 4. Our Johnny Pig, our guy. That's 4.
And the guy that you said, is he kind of snarky?
No, I've had dinner with him before. I know. He's got 4 tickets to UCLA, and
that's incredible.
And a parking pass. That is our guy right there. Congrats, John. If you didn't get the tickets, make sure you go to Tickets for Less and use Hurrdat10 as your code for a discount on those tickets tomorrow. We'll be back. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We just gave away 4 tickets from Tickets for Less to our guy, Johnny. He will be going down to UCLA and have a parking pass as well.
I just kind of want to ride with Tickets for Less so I can wear the TFL.
Yeah?
Yeah, so people think it stands for Tackles for Loss. Then they'll stop asking me about these logos.
Yeah, why are you wearing Wisconsin gear?
Easy. You know, it's funny. The cool thing and the stressful thing about this job is number one, you're constantly critiqued like every day, right?
Yeah.
And as my man Jay Foreman would say, brother can't even go get his bread like at the grocery store. But the other thing that you don't invite is when he's having a press conference and he's speaking directly to your household.
Yeah.
It's like,
Which is a new dynamic for you.
it's like, do I want to chime in? Do I not? Because I'm telling you, and a lot of those guys are like at our house and stuff.
Yeah.
So you get their insight, like a Quinn Clark or a Keelan Smith or, Donnie's like
Donnie's his roommate, right?
they ride together.
Yeah.
I see Donnie more than as a matter. We were in Columbus, and his dad was the fam had to take. I always say his dad. I got to get his wife is fantastic too. I got to give the couple credit, but they had a tough choice because all of a sudden when they told Donnie he was traveling to Columbus, I was talking to D-Rock and he's like, shoot, man, Darian's going to SDSU.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that whole parenting dynamic kind of sucks, but you're built. I was like, D-Rock, you're built for this. And he's like, man.
Where Darian got a little offer from SDSU as well.
I told you, he's incredible.
Yeah, a little shout out to our guy there.
Again, nobody listens to me, but I tried to warn the Metro that this dude was ready. And he is killing the Metro. But anyway, so it's like, though I know what those guys think. I know how they practice. I know what happens. And so it seems like we have this special teams play discussion like the last 3 weeks. Okay, do we go? Well, I talked to so it's very, very complicated. But I think at the end of the day, you have to have trust in roster management. And as long as Nebraska is still trending in the right direction to meet goals, they will be very reluctant.
They're going to err on the side of caution.
Because at the end of the day, this goes back to what you're talking about with high school quarterback development, and I recommend you go back and listen to that. That was one of the better segments when you talk about quick turnarounds in year ones and quarterback developments and not finding quarterbacks through the portal.
Yeah.
This whole roster management thing is part of that too, because if you want to build for the long haul, at some point you want to be an older team.
Yes.
And to be
get old and stay old.
So
how do you do that?
This is part of it. And if you can do it while you're stacking wins,
yes,
you put yourself in a good position for the future. So sometimes they have to talk me off the ledge.
You got to be a little patient, right?
Yeah.
Because when you hear Coach Rule talk about, hey, if you want this thing to be sustainable, if you want this thing to last forever, yes, he's talking about culture, right? But if I had to pick the thing I think he's the second best at after culture building, it's roster management.
Yeah.
Because he has a definitive plan, and he is willing to sacrifice wins today for wins down the road.
And it's a cool culture because they have to play with one another. So if you're talking about DJ and Prude and Caleb or whatever, like you have to get along. Well, you should get along. They're now kind of all playing together. When they rep in, they cheer for one another. I told D-Rock, I talked to him early in the morning. I said, hey, enjoy the trip to, South Dakota State. And I said, I promised him that I would give Darian a hug. So I went down to the sidelines. It was early. And I missed it the first time, but I knew I'd promised him. I was like, he may ask Darian, like, I don't think he would, but he might. He's like, did DB give you a hug? And if Darian said no, I was going to be like, I'm screwed.
You're going to be in trouble.
Man, you lied to me. So I'm like 55 stories up.
Yeah.
I go all the way back down there. I was like, hey, man, I promised your dad I would give you a hug. So if he asks you, you make sure you tell him yes. He dapped me up. He's like, man, I got you. But I say all that to say, like, that's kind of the camaraderie and culture that they're trying to build.
If you're going to build a roster this way, if you're going to manage a roster this way, you have to get the culture right first. Otherwise, guys just won't have it, right?
So I told you about when you can cheer for other guys when they play your same position. I work with Dante Lloyd, right? Jalen's dad, and it's like to hear the cool stories about like with Jalen and Jacory.
It'd be really easy for him to look at Jacory and be like, he's taking my stuff,
right?
He's here to take my stuff.
But the longer you do it together and move it in the same direction, the better chance you have for long-term sustainability. Because then your young guys all of a sudden get old, and then you only have to supplement in the portal and not supplant. Everybody says you got to get the quarterback spot right, and I'm with you. You do, but man, if you had your druthers, always take the high school quarterback unless your quick fix in the portal is surrounded by talent. And i.e. Ohio State.
If you're in a place where you're like, hey, we can win a national championship this year, we had a little bit of a gap in quarterback because we had a guy leave early or whatever, right? And then you go, hey, if we get the guy right in the portal, we can win a national championship this year, then that makes sense. But again, that's supplementing through the portal. That's not building through the portal. We saw that. I mean, look how Georgia does their roster management. Georgia doesn't take a ton of transfers.
You know who it's going to pan out for?
Clemson?
No. Well, maybe. That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, we've railed on, especially me because I don't like him. We've railed on Dabo for it.
That's a good one.
That might work out.
Right down the road in Ames.
Oh, yeah. Another one of my guys.
It may work out for them, his patience through the quarterback position.
His is going to have to be – it's going to be different for them because –
it's all relative.
They're not going to probably be able to stack the wins while they get guys older, and he's probably going to kind of go through these waves of what the seasons look like. Yeah. But he knows what he's doing 100%.
Yeah, and I'll look at their neighbors right down the street. If Iowa ever gets – the quarterback spot right through high school.
Yeah. Watch out. I don't know if Kirk will still be around for it.
I mean, they probably next level that thing.
100%. What's the difference between them and Michigan last year? What's the difference between them and Michigan last year?
The play they got a quarterback.
Iowa can do almost every single – last year at least. I know they're not as good this year. But the last handful of years, Iowa could do every single thing. Now, they didn't run it quite as well, but if you take – Keegan this year, he's running it just as well as anybody at Michigan did last year.
I know one thing. You want to fight me over the top 3 in the Heisman?
Not top 3.
Okay.
I'll fight you over top 2.
Who's Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year right now?
People are gonna give it to Dylan Gabriel. Probably.
Yeah.
But I know you're gonna say Keegan, and I'm not gonna be mad at you. Caleb, yeah. Why do I keep doing Keegan? Jiminy's.
I think he's the best offensive player in the Big Ten.
He's certainly the most important offensive player in the Big Ten.
He has the least to work with, even though that offensive line is good. There's no balance in their offense.
There never has been.
Every time he touches the ball, you're like, oh, fudge, that's a pretty sweet run.
Yeah.
I think he could easily make the case he's the offensive player of the year in the conference.
I think if it was an MVP, it's a lot stronger of a case.
As opposed to most outstanding?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true.
He's definitely the most he might be the most valuable player, period, either side of the ball in the league. There's going to be some defenders that have a word about it, and I understand that. But in terms of just pure value to his team, what is that team? What are they right? They got 2 losses right now?
C.
6-2?
Yeah.
What does that team look like? How many wins?
KJ?
4-4 at best.
Yeah.
At best.
Let me ask you another one.
Yeah.
Today, you got to take over a program. Would you rather be USC or Michigan?
Ooh. I think it's easier to win at USC.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's not true.
I think it's easier to win at USC.
Why? Because they haven't.
I know. No, don't get me wrong. I know.
I mean, Pete Carroll was a long time ago.
It's also easier to win at Nebraska than at Iowa State, and we've seen the results there too.
No, that's fair.
I think USC is an easier job because I think people really underestimate the academic stringency of Michigan. Like, I think that's harder than people talk about. I think that's a more difficult job than people talk about. I think Michigan has to be a developmental program, but people look at it like it's an Ohio State.
I don't know. So the problem with saying that is the expectation versus the reality are too far apart from the fan base to the admin.
That's why I think Michigan's a harder job.
Somebody's going to have that conversation out loud.
That's why I think it's a harder job. Because I can go to USC. I know everybody just expects me to get 5 stars and do whatever, and I've got access to talent in California. Now, the transition to the Big Ten does complicate that answer because I do think that's a challenge for them to play a style of football that complements their league now. But
you're seeing that in their second halves.
I don't think that but I think the admin and the fan base and the coaching staff at Michigan are all on different pages of how you need to run that program. And the only reason Jim Harbaugh got away with it is because he was Jim Harbaugh. I think that's a harder job than people realize.
I know you've been saying that.
It is Midwest Stanford.
I think SC's hard too, though. And I had people laugh at me.
I think
but
SC's harder than people say it
it's
is.
supposed to be a lot of things, and it doesn't ever live up to it. I don't know if it's like people think it is.
I think it's still easier than Michigan, but I don't think it's as easy as people think.
And Pete Carroll was a long time ago.
We got our guy Mike Sautter coming up next. Talk a little high school state football playoffs. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by our guy Mike Sautter, Hurrdat Sports and NEBPreps. What's going on, man?
Did you guys see Michael Jordan last night?
Relax.
You didn't see Michael Jordan?
I saw a guy who was out of bounds.
He was not out of bounds. Shins in, hands in. Shin equal feet.
The whole time I thought he was out, but it was so spectacular. I didn't care.
I think it was one of those where they're like, hey, that's a great catch. We're going to give it to him.
I mean, it was bang, bang. I just felt like what they called on the field was going to be what it was. I didn't see enough for a reverse, but whatever. I mean, it was incredible.
Oh, it was a great effort. It was a great illegal catch.
And that might not have even
come on.
I mean, so all of a sudden he's apparently rejuvenated.
Who? Garrett?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
been drinking that cayenne pepper.
Well, it's because
I just want to know.
Devontae.
Be honest. What was your level of anxiety from the first half? Could it have been any lower? I mean, they were booing.
It was really bad.
Were you like ready to walk away?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I could have. I imagine that game was. So, the Texans had a chance to drive and put a dagger in it, and Jets got to stop.
Yep.
They come down and score, and I'm like, game on.
Yeah.
Just didn't put it. You had a chance to choke a team with bad morale, and like stomp
Not
on
sure
them.
they actually like each other either.
And you turn it over, you give up a sack, and it's just like, they're gonna make this hard.
Yeah.
And you're gonna let a bad team feel good about themselves, and you're gonna be in trouble.
I'll take it.
That is one of the worst things you can do is kind of just let a bad team get a little confidence.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
We see it. We see it in sports all the time.
Yeah.
Especially at the high school level.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you wake up
around,
all of a sudden you're in a battle, and it's like, we can handle our business. This is what we get.
I mean, they lost to the freaking Patriots last week.
That's
about as low as you can get.
That's what I mean.
It's as low as you can get.
And Patriots statistically came out of there with a win, doing some things that you may never see again.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
Yeah, they were awful.
I know that's a terrible football team.
Yeah,
sorry, Sasha.
No, they're real bad.
She's crying over there.
They actually suck.
Do I know the backstory of why the Pats fan is it a Brady thing?
No, I bet.
No, I don't know the reason either.
It's just a weird affinity. I chalked it up to a Brady thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a 49ers fan, so I was just obsessed with Steve Young when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Then the whole Steve Young, Jerry Rice thing was just, I was enamored by it.
I know it's the end of that game, and we can get to high school in a minute, but the end of that game coincided with the end of the Nebraska men's basketball exhibition, and I just so happened to be on my phone very intensely watching it as we're waiting for Coach Hoiberg to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, when the game got over, when, final whistle or last play, I had to get up and, like, walk to the hallway, and people were laughing at me and
all
that stuff because I was so mad.
This is interesting because there aren't a lot of parallels between the programs, but there's two in particular between Nebraska and Creighton. Now that you just mentioned Nebraska, Nebraska does have the ability to play big.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, they could play real big.
They actually have legitimate size, but shooting is still going to be a question mark. And I feel like for once, for as versatile as Creighton can be, and they have a ton of options, shooting may actually be a thing for. Now, this is relative to Creighton, not relative to Nebraska
or everybody else.
or everybody else, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to need, like, Pop Isaacs is going to have to shoot it well.
He's going to have to be exactly what he was against Purdue.
In the exhibition.
Like, every game.
Like, he's the X factor for me with their shooting, because if he obviously he doesn't have to go 4 for 5 in every first half or whatever, but if he can shoot it in a high 30s, low 40s percentage, that totally changes who Creighton is offensively, because he's the X factor. And then if you do get Fedor back, then all of a sudden you have plenty of
Pop is a career like 36.5 guy, which is
it's a pretty good number.
Solid.
He's gonna get better.
He's gonna get better looks than he ever has.
So I have a couple of deeper dive questions. So it's like Vrzal. Well, for once, Nebraska actually has a true point guard.
2 of them.
and
Creighton
Creighton does not.
Yeah. No.
I actually think Pop might end up being their best point guard.
But you can
He's
play
so electric and get to the rim.
And he's and playmaking.
You can stagger
Yeah.
They will.
Ashworth and
I think they'll
and
play
Pop.
both a lot at the same time. I just think you'll end up seeing Pop with the ball in his hands more than maybe we anticipated with Ashworth coming back.
yeah, you're going to have to end up liking him.
I may not end up liking him, but I am going to have to root for him. So,
Yeah.
God, you're way better than me because I still don't root for LeBron.
yeah, I mean, I want Creighton to be good. Obviously, he looked really good against Purdue, which is, I mean, Purdue was playing starters. That was a real team that they played out there, and they played that pretty close to a real game in terms of how they played it. And he played really, really well against a team that kind of tried to heat him up a little bit, had bigger physical guards, which is something I was concerned about.
This is a weird year because they both could actually be like big teams.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally could play Miller at the 3 if you wanted.
And that's what they've been working on.
If Miller is going to get minutes, he's going to have to
Yeah.
play at the 3.
Yeah.
Because I think Jason Green and Isaac Trout are both ahead of him, I think.
Yeah. And then Jackson.
and McAndrews.
And McAndrews
is kind of
coming.
a stud.
Yeah.
That dude can shoot the lights
Be
out.
interesting to
he's
see what they do.
He's funny. So Jackson McAndrews reminds me of like what Nebraska's dealing with in the secondary.
Oh,
He definitely
play him or
definitely
Play
good
him or
enough to not
Yeah.
and to help you win.
to not redshirt.
Right.
But you better figure out if you're gonna find the meaningful minutes to justify it.
Yes,
It's
100%.
going to be tough.
Because at his position, you've got guys that can play. You don't that's not a place. If you played 2 guard or a 3 even, it's a much easier
So
decision.
watching him and this is where I need to bring Micah on because he's watched this dude 10,000 times in high school. I didn't realize. So in high school, he looks like a big guy because he's long.
Yeah.
At the collegiate level, he looks like a thin guy
Yeah.
Yeah.
because he's long. But he hung in there.
He's probably strong.
girth-wise.
Yeah, he's bigger and stronger than I think people
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
He looks skinny.
I don't know.
I mean, he's skinny, but he's not
he
like
hung in
rail thin.
He did hang in there.
Yeah. That's the thing is with those skinny guys, if they're willing to fight, you'll be okay.
But this
He's not
is,
Mason Miller.
but this
That's-
is what.
yeah.
But this is where you have to be careful as an SC guy. Doing it night in, night
Sure.
out with that frame is different.
Sure.
Than like shocking me because you're good against Purdue.
But I also think
Because you have to be able to repeat that,
Sure.
Especially like I don't know if
Especially
you
in the Big
looked-
East,
I don't
yeah.
know if you looked at the Big East.
we're good. No, but especially if you're not
Pretty physical,
Like if-
especially at the wing spot.
if you're McAndrews and you're getting say they find 15 minutes a game for him,
What if
that's
he-
also
why
different.
can't he play the 3?
I don't think he's quite laterally quick
Yeah.
enough as a defender
Who's he
yet.
guarding?
Neither's Miller.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Neither's Miller.
Well, I think if Fedor
And
comes back,
you
he's
watch
gonna.
McAndrews shoot. You're like, oh my.
No, I know. McAndrews is the best shooter on the team,
This dude is silky.
and I don't think it's close.
If they have.
So if you're going to compromise yourself defensively
for
on the
the-
perimeter,
I actually
give me the better score.
So I think they might, and
Fedor will end up being.
if Fedor gets eligible, he's
I know.
the 3.
Yeah.
No
So
question.
They'll start the 2 guards and then Fedor will be. The
I get this is high school, but while I'm on it, if Fedor plays,
Oh my God.
how are you supposed to know when you need a guy if he's going to redshirt or not? Like, what if the decision comes late?
I don't know, but if the ceiling for Creighton is go with Fedor versus without Fedor is
huge,
enormous.
way different.
All right, so I want to go back to the
All right.
2-point guards. Is Ulyss your second?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Because you said 2, and I was like, wait
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah, and he's solid. Like
Because you can't really play through Mia, but
no,
No, but he's useful.
right,
Yeah.
he's useful.
There's a
He
difference.
especially if you need at least a little rim protection.
He
too.
can do 3 things good.
well,
Good.
well,
Good.
well.
He can. He can.
Sounds about right.
Protect the rim.
Yeah.
Catch a lob
Yeah.
and rebound.
That's
You don't
all
need
I.
him-
That's
you
all I
don't need
want my
him
bigs to do.
You don't need him to do much more than that. But in Fred's offense, the last couple of years with Derek and Rink, they've had the guy that kind of initiated at the top of the key, and he can't
who's
do
gonna shoot it? I like that. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
That's good
Good
distinction.
distinction. Yeah.
that.
You're talking about to ignite
Who's
the
gonna
offense from
Yeah.
up top.
Who's going to shoot it would be, well, you have to really rely on Bryce. And then Connor Season and Gavin Griffiths are going to have to be good. Like, going to have to be able to make shots.
I'm telling you, Bryce is the new Who was it? The guy I
He's
can't
so
believe
cerebral. 'Cause he's
that I'm
quiet.
drawing a blank to that Stephen Bardo used to be like. I wonder if he knows just how good he is. And he said it almost every game.
Yeah.
Was it Blanton?
Maybe.
Delano?
Or Delano Banton?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Banton.
Yeah.
Blanton. Yeah, I think
That's
it was.
how I used to feel about Isaiah Roby, though, too.
No, it was Roby.
Yeah.
It was Roby he would say
Yeah.
that about. That's how I feel about Bryce.
It's too
That's
bad
how I
he's
feel
just
about
been
Bryce.
banged up.
Because I just,
Because
yeah,
Bryce is pretty sweet.
I think Bryce,
Oh, he's
he's
really good.
one of the guys on that team that I'm like, oh, man, I really like his game.
Yeah.
I don't know that mentally he realizes what he is. Kind of like you're saying with Stephen Bardo of like, I don't think he knows how good he is or how good he could be.
That dude is pretty silky.
He's
smooth.
going to have to be like the alpha this year, and he's not that much vocal like that. Jawan is vocal.
Yeah.
Those are the two leaders. I mean,
as we get all the eye rolls from going elbow deep into hoops. Let's start tonight. We talked to Coach Mackey earlier in our coach's corner. Is that the toughest matchup to predict tonight?
yeah,
or
or
is there?
the 8-9 game. Yeah, with Papio
And it should be
Central.
like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's supposed to be set up, right?
Yeah, it's the toughest one because Papio lost, their lineman / punter and all that due to a freak lawnmower accident.
I was shocked at
Yeah.
their special teams.
And Papio,
It was ultimately, I mean, we're fine. Like we're gonna be okay. But I felt like their inability to just simply punt the ball changed the trajectory of that game.
well, that's what them losing him, and they lost him right before that game. Like that was like that week.
Yeah.
So I think they maybe have figured. You'd think by now you'd figure some stuff out. That's the game. That's the tightest game. I won't be there tonight, but that's the closest game.
I don't know about. Like you think?
Millard West Kearney. Is that what you're thinking?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
It's very interesting.
I think. I wish I could cap Kearney better.
Me too. Yeah, I haven't seen.
Because I think they're good defensively, but I look at some of the offenses they've seen, and I'm like,
hasn't been. Yeah,
I don't know.
I know this.
And high school's hard enough because kids are moody, so it's hard to know what you're getting week in, week out. No, I'm dead serious.
Oh, I know.
It's hard.
Both of those teams are really well coached too. So, like Millard West is really well coached. Kearney's really well coached. That will be interesting. Can Millard West run the ball effectively enough? They ran it well last week against Westview, but can that go on the road and work for them?
Is East good enough on the back end to keep the big playability from Cannon or Jones down?
I don't know.
Because that one's an interesting one for me. Because I think East could present some problems for North defensively.
Yeah, but up front, it's
just a win?
mismatch. Yeah,
Even without TNT?
yeah.
I gotta ask,
If they can get the snaps, that's the thing.
What about Southeast?
so that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
Kind of. So when you say,
Kinda hard.
I'm not knocking the 8-9, but the next toughest
Probably.
is the 7-10, right? According to
Yeah.
how you really do seedings.
and has Millard North figured it out without Mooberry? Now that you have so many,
That's my
we've had
concern.
weeks without him, but he's so special.
On both
Yeah.
sides, honestly. Like
Yeah.
that's
I think you probably, if you're Southeast, you just try and shorten the game. Just hand the ball off, give it
Yeah.
to Cash, and let him roll and shorten the game a little bit. Because Millard North's offense, even without Mooberry, who was having a great year on both sides of the ball,
probably more
they're
important.
still very
Explosive.
You know what I need to research?
And he's probably more important defensively.
Because I'm sure it's happened. I know it's happened, but it's not easy to be a 100-tackle, 1,000-yard rusher.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
No.
And Budenbach is
Cash
right there,
do
right?
that.
Like
Yeah.
it's like
I'm trying to
in
think.
Lincoln. I mean, that's not. Seacrest isn't like this massive home field advantage.
No,
either,
but a lot of Metro teams aren't used to
They
just
don't
traveling
like
at
going
all.
down.
They're
Yeah.
just not used to traveling.
right,
Um,
not that far.
No, and I know that Miller North was out at Columbus last week, so maybe that helps them a little bit. But that's a different deal. Do you have one off the top of your head? 1,000 rusher, 100 tackle guy?
I know they're there.
In
It's just-
11-man, or in Class A.
Yeah.
There's not a lot.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did
Probably been a long time.
this is obviously it's a Miller North thing. Did Paul Homer do it?
I could see it.
Yeah.
Because he was that kind of guy.
He would be a prime.
Well,
candidate.
He'd be
Sean Fisher
Sean
might have.
Fisher.
Sean Fisher might have.
He'd be a prime candidate.
Yeah.
Sean Fisher. Yeah.
Probably.
Any of those that stretch of
that
middle
like
North
fullback,
yeah,
the fullback,
quarterback, fullback, linebacker guys
would be prime candidates.
right. Yeah.
But that's pretty good at this day and age where guys
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
we specialize way more.
frown their face up at being good two-way players.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often.
Man, that's tricky. Any other good ones in Class A that you are keeping your eye on?
I mean, maybe North Star Bell West. How healthy is Will Anderson's shoulder?
I'm surprised
Prep-
you haven't said this one.
What prep?
Yep.
Yeah, prep Elkhorn South.
That's not interesting to you?
It is. I'll be there because it starts at 8. Forward pass is going to be like majorly optional.
And Prep might play some young guys. They kind of
How many
quiet
forward passes are completed in that game
tonight.
Total between both teams. Over under is
I will say
17.5 is the over under.
God, I was going to say 15. That's a great number.
It isn't going to be a lot.
17 and a
And
half.
most of them are going to be within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage.
I would.
Don't tell Nebraska football fans that.
My gut says take the under, having
Yeah.
played both of them.
Elkhorn South.
What number did you
loves,
give
like,
him?
17 and a half.
Oh yeah, under. I'm taking the under.
Well, that's 9 apiece.
There's a lot of
I'm
like
taking the under.
quick pass, wide receiver screen stuff. Elkhorn South does that quick game passing
number.
stuff.
It is a good number. I'm taking the under though.
It's a good number.
It'll be a quick game.
You would have had me pondering more at 15.5.
I kind of think this
And
is.
Succo's back, I think, for Elkhorn South. So that
So
changes that much.
I'm going to tell you something about Succo. As much as I love him, shaking his, and I told him before the game and after the game, I said, "Hey man, watching you is an absolute treat."
Yeah.
I could not believe how thin he looked, not being able to kind of
Yeah.
eat and lift
Yeah.
the way he did not look like. And he was a super cool kid.
Oh, yeah.
Like you could just, I'm like, God, I think I could really like you.
Yeah.
But he was a lot smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So just because that's just what
Internal, yeah.
happens
Yeah.
with what he had wrong with him. He's just sustenance, right, in training.
Yeah.
So I wonder how he's recovered physically
That's-
from getting back to being able to lift and eat the way he wants and move around.
Their two linebackers at Elkhorn at South are good. And they're going to have probably a big game tonight, I would think.
Well, they'll have opportunities
Geezer
because
is- yeah, they're gonna,
Geezer's a stud.
yeah.
He's a good
Yeah.
player. He's a good player. Prep has kind of quietly tried to expand their RPO triple game. Is pretty. If they stayed with it more, it's pretty good. Because anytime you can run like Costello can,
Yeah.
and you
He's
have
a
a viable
great
run option,
runner.
and you
Yeah.
can get it out on the RPO, it's not my team, so I don't care. But I
If
know
it were me.
I know it gives me. I know it
Keeping
gives.
praise on Prep.
I know it would give me a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard
100%.
because you're controlling my outside. You're controlling my adjustments.
And Ruby can run enough, run it enough. I wonder, speaking of that.
He's pretty
RPO
good
game.
yards after contact too.
Yeah.
That's probably something with Shanahan too. Is
Shanahan's good at
if you let those guys break tackles, you're gonna pay the price.
Yeah. And I wonder if you could. I haven't seen it. I guess I've seen Prep play a couple times, but I haven't seen like Walker. They have him playing in the slot. I wonder if you could do some Jimmy.
He is.
I wonder if you could do some kind of
strong son of a gun.
like run an option, like a triple option.
He's
type of
that's
sneaky
see,
play with a slot
They
guy.
did that to us, and they would have some success. Then they'd have a negative play, so then they would get away from it. But he's tough on the perimeter. You get him out in space. He's kind of bottom heavy, so he's hard to get to the ground. Costello's a handful, and Ruby's a good runner.
But like pass catching is an issue for them.
Yeah, just the ability
They don't have anyone.
to go get vertical. And I like the deuce at Elkhorn South, so maybe their ability for Riggs to throw it to him vertically.
They'll take shots. They
Maybe
do
the
take
difference.
shots.
They will take the shots.
Yeah, they
their
do take
their
shots.
boot game is pretty good.
Yeah.
When they get him on the perimeter,
I love the boot game.
We have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
But I think for them, it's just you just got to not know when it's coming because if you don't, it's hard.
Yeah. Mike, we've got a couple minutes left in this segment. In terms of these smaller classes, any matchups?
Lower classes, people would prefer.
See, I've said lower before, and I get in trouble because they're not lower.
I think smaller.
Smaller, because they're literally just smaller
don't
schools.
say lower. They're just smaller schools. It's smaller.
That's what- Don't try and get me in trouble with the 8-man crew again, man.
Yeah, don't do that.
Smaller classes. That's all I
They
said.
would yell at you too.
They are smaller. I can't do anything about that.
Smaller in size. Yeah.
Not in heart, though.
Other. B is the most intriguing as far as the bracket's concerned. And just because I think
I apologize too. I said Costello. It's Caniglio, which I know very well.
Yeah.
I'm just. Why didn't you stop me?
A lot of names.
Why didn't you stop me?
I didn't catch
It
it real
happens,
time.
man. It
I
happens.
didn't catch it real time. I called him.
okay.
I called him Keegan Johnson like 3 times this morning. It's
Hey,
all right.
so here's the funny thing.
He plays at K-State.
If I didn't know the guys, I would never use their names.
Yeah.
Typically, I
You
just
just do
use
numbers. Yeah. That's how coaches watch film. It's just like, oh, I like 12.
Well, look at our
or-
scouting report. It's all numbers.
Yeah.
Well, look at you.
I mean, Bobby Bowden.
Throw that up there for the camera then. What are you doing?
There's so much familiarity between these two staffs.
Not sure
It's
it would matter.
Yeah, no. B is the most open, if you will, as far as brackets concerned, in my opinion. You have Bennington, Scott, who else? Bennington, Scott,
Seward.
Elkhorn North, Seward.
Yeah.
And Scotts Bluff is dangerous. They're dangerous.
I can't believe you
They
called.
might run for 300 tonight or something.
You called your shot with Wahoo being the 3.
Listen, yeah. And Wahoo has, of their 9 games, 8 of them have been running clock. And the one that wasn't was against Ashland Greenwood, who's the number 2 team.
And they beat their head.
And they beat them 28-14.
Yeah.
Makes a ton of sense to me.
I'm telling you, Wahoo Bennington would be a great game.
I got to ask you about Booth when we come back.
We'll come back. That's Mike Sautter. That's DB. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. Make sure you get out to unionomaha.com to get tickets for this Sunday's playoff matchup. Union Omaha at Werner Park, 2:30 p.m. It is playoff time. They've won the regular season. Go watch Union Omaha try and win the playoff tournament as well. Get to unionomaha.com for tickets. DB, you had a Connor Booth question.
I do.
Playoffs.
So I mean the gaudy numbers, right? Almost 14 per. The ridiculous numbers. He's going to broach over 6,000 yards. The amount of touchdowns.
That's a lot of carries.
The YPCs have been amazing. Do you when you watch him and you pit it against, because you saw him live early against Catholic?
Yeah.
Do you pit it again? Like, how do you separate not apologizing for the schedule versus knowing he's really good? Because it seems like his running style will translate.
It's hard because,
doesn't it? Or is that too much?
yeah, he's low to the ground. I just would like to see him.
I mean, is he a more
more.
explosive Liebentritt?
Something like that. Yeah,
That's interesting.
I think he moves to. I was gonna bring that up. That's a good question or a good point. I think he's a fullback.
He has the frame for it.
Yeah, he's a thick kid.
He's thick and low. Like he's low. Can
He's
be
thick.
low to the ground like that.
He's fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, a more explosive Liebentritt is actually really intriguing.
His athletic numbers.
I know. That's what
That
I'm
stuff is
saying. Like,
very
I think
good.
we sleep that he's
pretty athletic.
He's athletic. There's no sneaky to it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 2,400 yards rushing and 184 carries, which is kind of up there. But
It's still over 10 per.
It's almost 14.
It's 13.1.
I've done them. I've watched them all year. I know.
It's
Like
13.1.
Yeah.
Like that's a Bristol. I know it's a lot of carries, but
He does have a lot of carries.
It's not a lot of carries, really.
on
184?
in
it's
his
like
career.
20 a game.
Listen, we gave the ball to Calvin Strong one year.
No, I know.
Like almost 400 times.
He's got 463 carries in his career.
Yeah.
That's not crazy.
Calvin's had 300.
He's averaging 12 yards a carry in his high school career.
Yeah, he had that many as a
Like,
senior.
Well, yeah, I mean, rushed for 70-some hundred yards.
That's
too.
pretty good.
You just don't.
He was sitting.
Like he's averaging 12. I mean, you just don't just like fall down occasionally, right? Like it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen with
Never
him.
trip.
Yeah, he's so low to the ground. I mean, and they run him now. They run him between the A gaps, like a lot. I mean, it's a lot of inside run stuff, and it's just
It is kind of incredible though, like to have that yards per carry when that's how they're using
it's
him.
in the pistol or shotgun, and it's a handoff, and he's just coming right at you.
I don't know. You got me kind of salivating over more explosive Liebentritt. Like that could be.
That's fair.
useful.
That's fair. I think that's true. I think
That
that's
could be
very good.
useful in the way Nebraska kind of wants to play. Like that could be fun.
I'm always looking for another inside viable run threat.
I just want Kyle Juszczyk.
Oh, that would be interesting, especially pro style.
Like if you're able
he
to
can
use
he
him,
can catch
like
the
if
ball.
you can use him like Juszczyk, like that's fun.
I just asked.
More like an H back, like a true H
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, absolutely. A little Chris Cooley style back in the day for Washington.
My man's got 99 total touchdowns. It's pretty good.
Let's get that one more. Let's get
No, he's gonna get
Jacob
about.
gave some stats on NEBPreps the other day,
Yeah,
like
he's gonna get
career wise. I just was like, you're approaching
Those don't even sound right.
Calvin Strong territory.
Yeah.
He's close. He has a very legit shot to break the 11-man rushing touchdown record too, which
Which is held by
could happen tonight. Isn't it Ducker? No, Ducker has total touchdowns, and Calvin has the
season-
rushing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ducker has what 100?
we sleep on him too.
Ducker.
He was incredible.
Because he broke
He had a
Bradley's
nice-
record, right?
Yeah, he
He had a nice couple years at Northern Illinois too.
He had a touchdown
gives
the other
me
night.
It gives me the willies to think about.
Jay Ducker. He had a touchdown for Sam Houston the other night.
He was so savvy as a runner. You could fit it correctly,
It didn't matter.
and he still could get you. Yeah, he keep you up, because he was smart.
Yeah.
He was a high football IQ. He knew blocking. He knew how plays were supposed to hit.
We
I'm gonna look up the record thing while you're. Yep.
we
I'll come back to it.
had some good stuff there on high school, but I think the college slate's better than you thought it was this weekend.
I don't.
DB. I don't. Listen, I know there's some helmet games.
There's no night game.
What's that?
There's no night games.
Well, that's all right. We got I think some quality games here because there's some stinky numbers that I'm not totally sure on. So we're going to talk about and bet on it here. Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. No bets, no glory. Make sure you get to warhorsecasino.com for all the house rules and all the upcoming promotions they've got going on. Here's a number that I find very stinky, DB.
Okay.
Indiana -8
And
over Michigan State.
I think Michigan State could easily win that game. It would not surprise me. I'm not going to call my shot an upset, but Indiana doesn't cover.
But if you're looking at that, if you're looking at those two teams,
Listen, I told our buddy yesterday. Michigan State will win that game.
that's a stinky number.
Yeah.
Like that is one where that caught my attention because if you're just looking at resumes, you're thinking that's a 2-touchdown spread minimum, right?
Yeah.
That
They've beaten everybody
by 2 touchdowns.
by 2 touchdowns.
That is a
Everybody.
stinky number because Michigan State's not special.
Yeah.
It's at Michigan State, though. That's one where I look at that and I go, okay, Vegas thinks Michigan State can win that game. 100% they do.
Points may be a gift in that one.
That one is super stinky. Another one I think is super stinky. Texas A&M -2.5 against South Carolina.
Like South Carolina.
I think that's a very similar dynamic of Indiana and Michigan State.
That game could potentially be like pinball.
Yeah.
Points aplenty.
Because you're talking about another potential playoff
What's
team.
the total in that game?
Yeah.
You're looking at another potential
60.
playoff team on the
Gotta be like
road
65.
It's got to be 58 minimum.
against a team that, no, that's a low total.
What is it? What is it?
43.5.
Nah,
I'll take
over.
the over.
Way over.
I take the over.
43.5.
Don't even blink.
That's a very similar dynamic in my mind, though, to that Indiana-Michigan State game in the sense of you've got a potential playoff team on the road against a middling conference opponent. Like, those are two stinky numbers. Now, it is up to -3 now. 2.5 was last night. It is up to -3 now for Texas A&M. Still a stinky line.
Yeah, 30-27 maybe. That game's going over.
You like the over there for sure. You like South Carolina on that one, though?
Yep.
South Carolina and the over for DB.
But you haven't given me a good game yet.
I think those are interesting games.
Yeah.
Interesting and good is not the same
They
thing.
don't even
different
remotely mean the same thing.
That's fine. I mean, the best game on the slate's going to be Ohio State, Penn State in terms of a matchup. That's a -3.5 for Ohio State there. Do we actually find out who Penn State is yet?
Yeah, you will.
Yeah?
Yeah, you will.
Who do you think they are?
Penn State?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Ohio State in that.
Okay.
I do.
You think Penn State's a little fraudulent for where they're ranked?
I think nope. I think if they have to make a big play and defenses are playing well, Ohio State is more dynamic.
Much more equipped to be able to do that.
Yep.
That's fair. And somebody's got to make a big play, right?
You're missing one that isn't very sexy that I think is kind of would not surprise me at all in the Big Ten.
Wisconsin, Iowa?
Nope.
Oh.
In the Big Ten?
Yep.
That is, let's see here. I looked at Wisconsin, Iowa.
We'll get to that one in a sec.
There's an ACC one that I think is more interesting, but I'm looking Big Ten here. Let me bring it up. All right.
It's right in your backyard.
Minnesota, Illinois?
Correct.
Yeah.
11 a.m.
Minnesota is a favorite. Oh, I actually do have that one on the list.
You talk about a bad line.
Yeah, Minnesota +3 at Illinois.
Yeah.
That is
just a key number.
Yes.
Against the team that's perceived to be better.
I mean, they're top 25.
And they're at home.
Yeah, that is a filthy, stinky number.
That line is horrible.
Yeah. Reeks to high heavens.
Horrible.
How interested are you in
do you like Minnesota there then?
I do.
Yeah?
I do. I do.
You've kind of been on Minnesota a little bit, though.
They're because they're better than I thought, so I had to eat it.
They are better than I thought, too. And I don't.
This is a great coaching job.
I can't really figure out why.
It's a great coaching job.
I
thought
there.
Minnesota would be in trouble. I didn't think they could get to 5. They're already at 5.
Yeah.
I put them at 5.
That is a really a lot of credit due to Fleck, no matter how you feel about him on that one, because this is kind of a culture year, it feels like, for Minnesota.
Do you know why I like Ohio State?
Why's that?
They shouldn't be favored.
The fact that they are.
They're basing this on history.
Yeah.
Just Franklin wets the bed in these.
All right, let's get to real quick Wisconsin, Iowa. Wisconsin +3 at Iowa.
Total's 40.5. Holy cow.
It's Nebraska too.
That's crazy.
I like I'll take Iowa.
You're taking Iowa?
I don't know. I don't love them to cover.
I don't feel great about it either way. Last one, Nebraska -6.5.
I like Nebraska.
I do too.
Yeah. Yep.
We like Nebraska here.
The game's going to be 24-13.
24-13, calling your shot?
Yep. Be ugly, but I like Nebraska.
That is Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Make sure you get to warhorsecasino.com for all their details and promotions coming up. Coming up on the show, Matt Vrzal to wrap up the week. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Mike Sautter here with us as well. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up the show today here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla, Mike Sautter here with me. Joining us now is Matthew Vrzal from Pison's Pizzeria, former Husker. Verz, how are you this morning?
Good, boys. How you doing?
Good, Matty. Good. Can I get a quick question out of the way? And I know you're not going to take this opportunity to brag or whatever, but you have a nephew that's over there playing at Southeast, and I brought up the 1,100. We're trying to find the next person that was done that. We're coming up with a lot of Miller North options with like the Paul Homers and the Sean Fishers in that category.
Oh, yeah.
How close? He's got both marks, right? I guess I'm unsure on the tackles.
If come to find out, there's an opportunity to play their 9th game, but they didn't play that game for some reason. So he's close. I mean, he should. They play tonight. He should get them both tonight. So yeah, that'll be cool for Cash. He's a great kid. He plays hard and he gets after it. So super proud of him and good luck to him tonight as they start the playoffs.
Yeah, that's one of the 2 or 3 tougher games we have a hard time. And that's how a 7-10 should be, right? Like it's kind of it's that one and the 8-9.
Oh yeah, they should be. That's where you want it to be.
Yeah, because you're already kind of having to get ready for Class A championships, right? Are you already kind of rolling your sleeves up?
Yeah, been doing some studying and research and trying to figure out with the help of Mike Sautter how far out west I may have to travel. So it might be a
Sandhill, Stedford, baby. You're going.
Might be an overnight. Might be an overnight trip this year. Have to hit that out there on leave Sunday night and come back on Tuesday. So we'll see what happens.
Verz, as you get your prep in for calling the state championships, like who has anybody stuck out to you that you're like, oh man, I really like them?
I try to. The big thing for me right now at this point, I'm just finding all the rosters and trying to memorize all the names as best I can.
Yeah.
And then those coaches that don't fill those out, I've got a number one finger that I'm giving to you. That's not very helpful.
Hey, coaches don't do it because why would they put their player stats out there to give a competitive advantage to their opponent?
Such a novel thing, too, because I called the Class A game last year, and I was expecting, a high-powered outfit like Omaha IMG Academy to have, actual names of the children playing in the game, but they just copied the thing from the school registry and just put the birth names in there. So I was calling some kids by the wrong names. That was awesome.
Yeah, and Scott
super excited about that.
One of Scott's best players didn't transfer from Millard South this year either. So I'm just saying.
What?
Scott has a kid that transferred from Millard South that's playing.
IMG Academy.
Just saying. It happens everywhere.
The whole bowl.
I don't coach at Scott. I don't coach at Scott, so I don't know what your insinuation is.
I'm not.
The whole Bo Robert Ryan thing was a mishap.
That makes you feel better, Mikey. You do you.
All right, Maddie.
Okay.
I didn't say it. I'm just.
Hey, Mikey, all that free stuff that you get when you come in just went out the door. So enjoy that. Because you want to play around, big dog. We'll play around.
Shane is so traumatized. He just put his head down. He's like, I'm not in this. There's a lot of testosterone being pumped back and forth right now. He's like, ooh, he backed away, put his head down. So I have
slow learners over there.
I have some questions, Matt, with how.
Let her rip.
What?
What is that? Let her rip.
So, you saw kind of Nebraska formation, Ohio State a little bit, in the 3x1 and kind of running the ball and spreading Ohio State out. You think that was more a product of how Ohio State liked to defend the run game with guys in the box, or something you think Nebraska will start to do to be more efficient in the run game? Because we saw them inside the 10, they got more condensed, right? A little more tight end, big stuff, and it wasn't as effective. But they also have less space too.
Yeah, I think that's your end game or your end goal of your film prep and your study and watching your opponents play. Like when you could find something nothing is ever going to be square, and that you're going to find a formation that you like to get into, and they're betting, hey, we are going to be vulnerable here, but our guy's going to win. And so then when you're Nebraska and you can win that battle, then it's successful, and you should just keep sticking to that. So I mean, it's part of anybody's prep in any kind of game, scenario where you want to do that thing. I like the 3x1 for them if they really do want to continue to run wide receiver screen. Then instead of straight up blocking it, just send angles out. I think you give your receivers who struggle straight ahead one-on-one blocking a better angle to pick guys off, and then your receiver has some momentum built up to make a move on the one guy that you're going to be short to block.
Verz, we've talked a lot about UCLA and their kind of pass defense today and the rest of the week, where it seems like teams have sort of forgone trying to really impose their will running the ball because there is some plays to be made against the passing game. I know I'm guessing you're not a huge fan of using the pass to set up the run, but when there's an opportunity there and kind of a weakened secondary, is that something you can get on board with?
And I've let it happen, but it's a misconception that people my second year in coaching, we were 5 wide, and I have no problem throwing it. I like winning. So whatever leads to winning, then you do that. So if it has to be throwing it to loosen things up, then you throw it. If it has to be running it, then you run it. But you do what you have to do to win. And that's whatever that looks like, whatever anybody draws up, that's what I'm for.
Hey, how have you kind of assessed like center guard play for Nebraska? Because it's strange that the left tackle spot in Gatula and where Mazuka is gets a lot of the talk. But how have you kind of gauged center guard for Nebraska this year?
It was good early, and then now it's kind of fallen off to meh.
I think one of the key matchups tomorrow, Maddie, is it's Ben Scott against the guy who's really good at playing that one tech. He is a big, strong dude tomorrow.
Is that the Samoan?
Yeah.
So that's I'm very pro Samoan. The more Samoan you get, so the better life will go.
I don't know if it's I don't know the correct, but yeah, I think he's wearing 93.
Yeah, he's an oos.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Right? He's pretty impressive, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. I would, again, the game of angles, right? So I would put Mazuka back at guard, and I would pin him. If he wants to shade to that side, I would just angularly pin him, and I would pull either backside guard, or you can even pull the center. I don't know if Scott's athletic skill set matches that, but
yeah, I wonder if we'll see him play a little more head up nose too to maybe offset that. That's kind of the little game within the game I know you'd appreciate.
Yeah, the less you're leaving that 1v1 in this game, I think the better it will go for you. But yeah, if you have to, I'm an old school. I don't know what your people's fancy terminology for it. It's just inside zone. It's 2 quick steps, and we're going to go 2 versus 1. We're going to take that guy back to the linebacker, and then whichever side the linebacker falls on, that guy's going to jump off and take him, and away you go. So if you are having problems with it early, I know T.O. would probably run wham, where he would just motion the wing back in. None of the linemen would block him. You just let the wing back sucker him from the side.
Yeah,
it's just an awesome play.
Cluster has ruined many lives running that play. And you know what's funny about
now you're biased.
Okay, I meant to say Vrzal. I'm sorry, I said Johnson. I made a mistake. I meant to say Vrzal. I already know where you're going.
Sold out one of your boys from the class of '92.
No, not at all. Because I remember in Washington State, he sprung me on that play. Vrzal did so. But let me go back to something, because I think the fact that Nebraska had wham used against them in the last 2 weeks may put that in their arsenal for this week, right? If imitation is the best form of flattery.
Yeah. Something else I'd like to see him use is if you're going to throw, like I would even take it a step further. I would throw Huntmacher and Robinson in the offensive backfield, flanked off to the side, and then I would listen to me now. Just listen to me. Just listen. I would ball fake that thing, and I would walk into the end zone by myself as the quarterback.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I get what you
don't think you're going to do it.
Yeah. Nebraska hasn't gone back to boot.
Little naked boot
since right. Dylan got pulled down for like a 3-yard loss. I think it was UNI.
Could you do that with Harburg though?
If you're ever going to throw it.
The boot.
You want to give it away.
I was talking about the run game part.
I'm talking about the run game too. If you want to give away, you're going to run the quarterback.
Well, yeah.
Maddie, you've been a treat, man. I hope to see you soon.
You coming over?
I don't know. Oh
wow.
I have to do some stuff with Shane, but I hope to be efficient.
Ooh, gotta get betting bites in.
Kinda, yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
He's like embarrassed by it.
Verz, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Verz.
See you boys, bring your wallet, Mikey.
Oh man.
That's the show for the week. That's 2 p.m. Ravi, Lulla. We'll be back on Monday.